Vado? È pure caduta per terra la mascherina, non ce la posso fare. Pronto, prova, ok. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to this very special venue. Please, we are going to start in a few minutes. Please come in and take your seat. Thank you.
Stefano.
Distinguished guests, we can now start our works. Please take your seat, and we will start our program with the welcome addresses by Ambassador Bruno Archi, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Italy to the United Nations agencies in Rome. Please, Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me and being here in this prestigious and unique location. And I would like to start my brief speech. I don't want to talk too much because I know there are other distinguished guests who has to do exactly the same. In a way, I would like to start with thanking, of course, the organization for having me here. And I'm glad to participate in this meeting, this event. And so, esteemed Assistant Director General Martina, dear Director General of CREA, Professor Vaccari, distinguished guests, it is an honor for me to take part in this special event organized by CREA in such an impressive, as I told before, really prestigious and unique location. In this framework of the World Food Forum, and of the FAO Science and Innovation Forum itself. Italy, as you may understand, is fully proud to host the pole of the United Nations dedicated to food and agriculture, and we are determined to further strengthen our mutual cooperation, especially in the current situation. As you may understand, is quite difficult, because we do believe that we are living in dangerous and challenging times ever, like never before. At least we are really in a dreadful situation that we have to cope with, and that's no need, it's simply needless that I insist on this point, because of course, internationally speaking, there are so many problems worldwide, and it's quite difficult, even let me say this, to cope with all of them. And diplomacy, I'm a diplomat of career, I'm not so happy to, of course, to see what's happening, let's say, around the world, because they say that whenever there is a world, diplomacy maybe has failed, and this is not a good signal. As I told, so in this current situation, featured by global and unprecedented challenges that require joint and coordinated response, indeed, and we, as Italy, firmly believe that multilateralism, and I would like to insist on this aspect, which maybe it's necessary not to be overlooked at all, multilateralism is the only possible way forward for the international community. Let me say about this some words, and briefly speaking, that of course multilateralism is a wonderful word, but of course you need goodwill at the same time. If there is a lack of goodwill, it's very difficult even to conceive any kind of a negotiation to be able, and you can try to sit around the table whenever you want, but it will be always difficult to get final results which may be considered as usual. So, true that multilateralism is the only possible way forward for the international community, but there is, let's say, must be cited by even a goodwill gesture. I like to remember the remarks, the speech delivered by His Holiness Pope Francis in the inauguration of the World Day, or the World Food Day, a message of hope for what's happening around the world, and hope that may be even considered as the only method possible to try to overcome all what is considered as the difficulties in present times. Food security remains and will remain central in our political agenda. As you know, Italy has been devoting its attention to food systems since a long time. In 2021, during our G20 presidency, we confirmed our long-standing obligation, primarily through the Matera Declaration, adopted at the end of the first ever held G20 Joint Foreign Development Ministerial Summit. And not only, I would say, in this declaration has been reconfirmed our engagement commitments to all these things, but above all, even the final declaration of the G20 summit in Rome, which of course closed clearly our G20 presidency, there are clear and outstanding references to these kind of issues. And I do believe that in the wake of what's happened, let's say, not only internationally speaking, but of course in the exactly in the fields of agri-food and food security, there are so many initiatives launched by FAO and by Italy itself as a whole, and I do believe that all these initiatives can be resumed and usefully even rediscussed and debated among partners, the main ones worldwide, because as you may understand, you know that our even G7 presidency is approaching in 2024. And this is not a detail to be considered at all, because at the end, as you may understand, this kind of presidency don't start exactly the January the 1st, but they need to be prepared well in advance, let's say, starting from next year. So this means that starting from January 2023, I do believe that Italy will start working around these fields and around this dossier, and of course will try to involve other partners in all this. The declaration, material declaration, and as I mentioned before, even the final G20 declaration of the summit in Rome, reaffirmed the inseparable link between food security, sustainable development, and reduction of inequalities towards the full achievement of the 2030 agenda. Furthermore, in 2021, Italy and FAO jointly hosted the UN Pre-Food System Summit that was a huge success and created the momentum to foster the needed transformational changes. Italy favored the decision of the Secretary General Guterres, the UN Secretary General, to base in Rome the FSS coordination hub, also in the light of the strategic role played by FAO and by its sister agencies in the fulfillment of SDG number 2, Zero Hunger. In 2022, we further upgraded our voluntary contribution to FAO, and this is not a detail, let me say, because of course we do believe that cooperation between Italy and FAO quarters, and above all the UN Rome-based agencies is fundamental. It's of key importance, and the essence is in the bilateral exchanges, of course, from a diplomatic and point of view, but above all, even as far as technical details are concerned, scientific cooperation and any kind of other effort which may be put in place, of course, are quite outstanding and prominent importance. In 2022, as I said, we further upgraded our voluntary contribution to FAO in order to meet the goals we set together. To this aim, food system transformation indeed is the solution, not the obstacle, to a more sustainable world, as we all agreed upon during the Food System Summit held in New York in 2021. As a part of the Nation Dialogue, Italy organized a permanent roundtable that included the private sector, civil society, university, academic institutions, local organizations, and an institution as a whole. And this is quite important because you have to enlarge. You have absolutely to enlarge the participation, the involvement of every single members of the international community, try to foster even some kind of good result, and to put it all together and to force them, if I may say this way, to work in only one direction. I told you before that, of course, we do believe in multilateralism. Multilateralism is not only a cooperation among states, but above all, it's a kind of cooperation among the civil and certain components of each member states of the United Nations system. We are fully aware that in order to fulfill these objectives, ambitious and immediate actions are needed and required, and that's clear, with a view to promoting technological, organizational, and social innovation, thus combating the loss of biodiversity, climate crisis, and food insecurity. As we will hear from scientists today, data show that we are still underestimating, unfortunately, the potential and the strategic need for a robust enforcement of circular economy, above all in the current conjuncture. characterized by growing demand of materials that are available in a limited amount on our planet, on our small planet. Moreover, relying on science and innovation is key to protect our lands and seas, as every effort in conserving and restoring degraded environments will benefit us as well as the future generation. And this must be the aim. And this is, even the key message contained in His Holiness Pope Francis' message last Friday, no? Some kind of a hope that we always to keep higher and make it fly higher and higher if possible. And of course, we can try to invent any kind of roundtables, we can try to launch any kind of initiatives, we can try to settle problems, but if there is a lack, if only one goodwill is missing, we can reach simply nothing at all. And this is the key point that we must always be taken into account and always be underlined. So finally, working to implement the 2030 agenda means increasing the resilience of food systems and reach food security for all, in all settings, including in conflict and in the most vulnerable situations. Italy stands ready to do its part, bringing in all relevant actors, institutions, academia, private sectors, always in close cooperation with FAO and with the UN agency system. Let's work together. This is the hope, this is the message, to ensure everyone has access to sustainable and healthy diets. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. We are now going to open the scientific work of this day, and I have the honor to pass the floor to Ms. Ismani Elouafi, Chief Scientist of FAO, and to Mr. Stefano Vaccari, Director General of CREA. Thank you.
Yeah? Yes, it's easier. Better there? Okay. As you see fit. Buongiorno, good morning. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for the great opening remarks and for the support of the Italian government. Thank you very much, Dr. Vaccari, and to you and CREA for this leadership. Thank you to my colleague, Mauricio Martina, our Assistant Director General. It's really a pleasure to be with you here. So what I thought I'm going to share with you, it's much more, what do we want to do with this Science and Innovation Forum? So at FAO, as you know, we are responsible for a huge mandate, which is all of food, all of agriculture, including plant, animal, fisheries, forestries, climate change. So it's very broad. And we have been always believing that science is very important. So we are a technical agency of the United Nations. We're not a political agency. So we have been always using technology and technical capacity. But we recognize now that really we need to do much more. We need really to push the frontier and particularly do more science, technology, and innovation. And that's where the new strategic framework emphasizes very much the need for science, technology, and innovation to really free the world from poverty and hunger particularly. And our new strategic framework focuses on SDG 2, which is zero hunger, SDG 1, which is no poverty, but also SDG 10, which is reducing inequalities. Because we recognize that the gap between rural and urban is huge. And in the rural, that's where we have agriculture, so we need to reduce that inequality. We recognize also the gap between the north and the south. There is a lot of poverty in the south, and there is a lot of wealth in the north. So those three SDGs are very important for us. So the way we want to do it, it's through transformation of the agri-food system. So we have our motto whereby we need to transform our agri-food system towards better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better life, leaving no one behind. And we created, or we developed, a strategy, two strategies actually, that are very important. a strategy on science, technology, and innovation, and a strategy on climate change. And those two strategies will support our four betters and the transformation of the agri-food system. And that's where CREA and institutions that are all here in this pamphlet are very important for us. Italy, it's a very strong agriculture country, but also very strong agri-industry country, and also very strong in terms of research and science that supports the agriculture and the food sector. So I'm very happy to see the roundtable around biodiversity, around healthy diet and healthy planet, around circular economy. Those are the subjects at the heart of what we want to do. We do need to change our way of producing, our way of processing, and our way of consuming food. We need really a dramatic change, and we see that the youth is pushing for it, but we need much more. We need everybody to be part of it, the youth, the less youth people, and also we need all the actors to come on board, and particularly the private sector. And I like very much what I have been seeing in Italy, whereby really there is a very strong collaboration between government, policy, but also the private sector. So I hope really that you're going to enjoy this gathering. And this is part and parcel of the Science and Innovation Forum. It's a week where we are trying to celebrate science, technology, and innovation. And we want to show to the world that science is supportive. Science is here. It could be scaled up, but we need policies for it. We need investment for it. We need private sector again for it. And we need to do it together, because if not, I think all of us are going to be losers. There is no winner in this unless we transform our agri-food system and we bring all actors in the south and in the north, in the east and west. Unless we do it together, we have really very tough destinies to come. So I hope really agriculture could transform itself, because it is a sector that can do it. Our capacity to sequester carbon is immense. It's very huge. And we need really to harness it, not only in forests, but also in the soil, also in the water, also in the coverage of crops. So we need really to do more in terms of our contribution to mitigate climate change and to reduce our environmental footprint and be a solution to climate change as well as poverty and hunger. Thank you very much, and thank you again for CREA, for your leadership, Dr. Bakari, and enjoy this wonderful scientific debate. Thank you.
I'm pleased to introduce our Director General, Stefano Vaccari, with his introduction to the scientific works.
Thank you, Paola. Ladies and gentlemen, all authorities, please, can we start with just a moment? Change of speaker is always a problem in every part of the world. It's the real globalization. In every case, thank you all. It's a great honor for me, as Director General of CREA, to introduce the works of this special event, organized together with FAO, as part of the FAO Science and Innovation Forum. The issues that we will address in this intense morning of work are extremely topical, and the commitment of vast scientific community around the world focuses on them. 3 roundtables. The first, biodiversity for sustainable food systems. The second, healthy diet for a healthy planet. And the third, food waste and circular economy. It's a real window of Italian research. We will have 17 speakers 4 communication for best practices, all in the morning. Is a huge commitment. Today we want to make a contribution to the international scientific debate, and we deeply thank FAO for giving us this opportunity through the sharing, albeit very quickly, of the state of the art of Italian research on these 3 issues. We are addressing the problem of sustainability, biodiversity and food security in a difficult historical moment. The Russian-Ukrainian war has held back the momentum for a global recovery after the dramatic crisis of the pandemic. Without peace, there is not development. Nevertheless, our effort to seek solutions to increase the well-being of the world's populations and to offer safe and healthy food and environment must be even more intense. Today, Scientific Italy is showing its extraordinary variety of research, and I want to stress the word variety and diversity of researches in Italy. In the agri-food sector, our country is one of that boasts a complexity and biodiversity at the top of the world. And the research presented today is an example of this complexity. We treasure this diversity of talents and approaches. All Italian research today is in this building. 2 words about CREA that organizes together FAO this event. Very few numbers, 2,300 people that works every day in CREA, 12 centers, more than 70 research sites, about 900 researches. The frame is very, very little, but in your folder you have a little preview of our researches. And every year we make about 900 researches, more than 1,400 publications, and more than 460 assignments and doctorates. With 132 collection of germplasm and almost 5,000 hectares available, CREA is one of the largest holders of biodiversity in the world. We remind ourselves that every day that our work as the EU treaty has taught us since 1957 is to increase agricultural productivity by promoting technical progress. Is the Roman Treaty. I conclude by spending a few words. Just a moment. Okay. Oh, very, very fast. Just a moment. Okay. I conclude by spending a few words on one of CREA's most recent research, the sending into space of Italian extra virgin olive oil for the study of its modifications in the environment of the ISS space station. Thanks to AESI and the ESI, the oil, which is an Italian excellence, with the ESI astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti, left our planet to fly into space. This oil is one of the 6 experiments selected by Italian Space Agency as part of the Minerva mission. The 4 Italian extra virgin olive oils launched into space last November reached the ISS in orbit around the Earth, 400 kilometers from here, thanks to a project included in a framework of the agreement between CREA and the Italian Space Agency in collaboration with Coldiretti and UNAPROL, and really I warmly thanks Coldiretti and UNAPROL for this support. The scientifically strategic collaboration aims to underline the importance of the Italian agri-food heritage and to enhance an asset for the country's exports, as well as to promote the principles of proper nutrition. Some samples of extra virgin olive oil will be brought back to Earth after about 6, 12, and 18 months to be analyzed and compared with those of the controls left on the ground. The future is now. If you see the slide, you can see Italy, the world, from 400 kilometers, okay? And an extra virgin olive oil, a sign of peace. The future is now. We have a responsibility to find solutions to huge problems such as malnutrition and climate change. The vision of the bottles of olive oil from the ISS space station, a place where astronauts from different nations coexist in peace, may be the sign that research is an activity that unites peoples and creates development. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to our institutional representatives. And now we are very pleased to introduce the scientific work starting with Roundtable 1 on biodiversity for sustainable food systems. I invite all the speakers to come to the table. Roundtable 1 is chaired by Ms. Vincenza Ilardi, CREA researcher at the Research Plant Protection and Certification. Mr. Lorenzo Ciccarese from ISPRA, head of the area for terrestrial species and habitat conservation and sustainable use of agri-forest systems, will be connected by Nairobi, I think is abroad, and we will be linked with this session. CNR Mr. Teodoro Cardi, senior researcher at the Institute of Biosciences and Bioresources. Professor Carlo Rondinini, full professor of zoology at the University of La Sapienza. Dr. Luca Buttazzoni, senior researcher at CREA National Focal Point for Animal Genetic Resources of the FAO Commission, will be connected as well. And Mr. Carmelo Troccoli Coldiretti, National Director of Campagna Amica Foundation. Well, if all the speakers are ready, Ms. Ilardi can start, please.
Thank you for giving me the floor. Good morning, everyone. Today, qualified speakers are called to give their contribution to well together biodiversity and sustainable food system. To make this combination effective, it will be indispensable to emphasize that when we speak about biodiversity, we must keep in mind that this word includes 4 crucial components: genetic diversity, diversity of species, diversity of habitats or ecosystem, and functional biodiversity. In fact, if genetic biodiversity constitutes a real treasure not only for improving qualitatively and quantitatively agricultural production, but also the greatest resource to respond to climatic change in progress, we must not forget how functional biodiversity, based on the trophic rule of the species, the interaction among organisms and between them and their environment, has the same importance. Even the car with the most power engine is useless without the humble wheels. Our main objective for today's meeting is bringing together experts of different skills, so that conference like this one really became useful moments for a suitable development of human communities. So let's start now with the first speaker. I yield the floor to Professor Ciccarese of the Area for Terrestrial Species and Habitat Conservation and Sustainable Use of Agroforest System of ISPRA, the Italian Institute for Environmental Protection and Research. So, I don't know, is it?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Okay. Good morning, Professor Ciccarese.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay.
Thank you. Please take the floor.
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm very sorry not to be on the phone, but I have a commitment here in Nairobi to have a partner in the United Nations. My speech, I don't know if it's possible to move on with my presentation from the, otherwise it would be. Okay, maybe I can go without slides. Yeah. Well, my speech is about the importance of biodiversity for sustainable food production. And I would like to mention entry point, the publication of the IPCC in 2019, climate change, and this report basically says that agriculture, in general, food is one of the main factors of climate change, the accumulation of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. Published in 2000 is that about 1/3 of global greenhouse gas reduction and accumulation in the atmosphere is related to agriculture and in general. That report from the main research on biodiversity and ecosystem services, 2019 published a global assessment of biodiversity services, saying that about 1 billion species in the world, a factor of all those assessments, are at risk. And according to last week, the index of the living planet has fallen by 70% in the last 50 years. And agriculture and forestry, and in particular agriculture, is one of the main indirect drivers in the decline of biodiversity, which gave rise to direct pressures on biodiversity in ecosystems. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I was saying that agriculture and forestry are among the main indirect factors in the decline of biodiversity, which give rise to direct pressures on biodiversity ecosystems, such as destruction of habitat, overexploitation, invasive alien species, pollution, and other factors. And when you look at the genetic erosion caused by agriculture, the figures are still dramatic. But on the other side, agriculture is one of the main agriculture sectors, one of the main economic sectors that more than others suffer from the impacts of climate change. There are many scientific papers, publications that says that observed climate change is already affecting food security, mainly through increasing temperatures, changing precipitation patterns, and greater frequency of some extreme events. So when we talk about climate extremes, the recent assessment report from the IPCC said that Mediterranean is a hot spot of impacts of climate extremes such as drought or storms and heavy rainfalls on agricultural production. So against this framework, against this backdrop, the future of food and agriculture is at risks, and we have to look at the trends and challenges. And actually the FAO proposed two main concepts with different publications and reports about agroecology and on agrobiodiversity, because agrobiodiversity is really, really important for agricultural sector to address the main challenges we have in front of us, such as biodiversity loss and climate change. In this regard, the case study of Italy in terms of dynamic of organic farming is very interesting, because the latest data on organic farming in Italy says that about 80,000 farmers have transformed the cropping systems in organic farming, and about 2 million hectares, more than 2 million hectares, which is about 16% of agricultural land, is organically farmed. And we have also evidence from science that organic farming is very beneficial in terms of reducing greenhouse gases, conserving biodiversity at genetic, species, and landscape level. But of course, we have problems in this regard, because of course, yield gap is one of the main challenges in this regard, because we have evidence that for some cultures, yield can be 50% less in organic farming than in conventional farming. But this gap, fortunately, is reducing, as many scientific evidence shows. In this regard, for example, I can say that while productivity in conventional farming is reducing because of loss of natural fertility due to intensive use of pesticides or irrigation, etc. On the other hand, the yield of organic farming is increasing, and this increase is not very much supported by science, by research. It is almost based on an exchange of data, information, narratives among organic farmers. So I think in this regard, we need
Professor Cicarese? There is a problem with the connection, I think.
About organic farming, but in general, we have to talk about diversified farming systems. And this is my last concept I would like to share with you, that we need levers for transformative change in the food systems. And in this regard, I think it's very important to look at the target that has been set up thanks to the farm to fork strategy, and in particular by the new global biodiversity framework that is going to be approved by the end of this year. in both the strategy and the draft of the global biodiversity framework, the main issue, and which is also addressed in a couple of specific targets, is how to mainstream biodiversity values in the agricultural sector and in the food system in general. So this is a challenge for us, and in particular for an organization like ISPRA in Italy, because we have to sustain this transformational change in the agri-food systems through analysis, assessment, research we do, and also while signaling to our Minister of Reference, the Minister for Ecological Transition, which are the options to go in this direction. So biodiversity is very important for the Italian agri-food systems, and we will do our best to facilitate this transition. Thank you very much for inviting me, for your attention, and sorry for not being there.
Thank you, Professor Ceccarese, for your interesting talk. Now I invite Professor Paola Imone Marsan to join us to the table. Thank you. Thank you. And now I yield the floor to the second speaker, Teodoro Cardi, Senior Researcher at the Institute of Bioscience and Bioresource of the National Research Council, who will give his talk on agri-food systems based on circular economy. Please.
Okay, good morning. And I'd like to have the first slide. Okay, thank you very much. I would like to thank, first of all, the organizer for this event and also for giving me the opportunity to tell you some of the results that the National Research Council, some of the activities that the National Research Council is carrying out in the topics related to this subject that actually I highlighted in bold. I will talk some research activities, and I will focus most on genetic diversity. And the research activities are being carried out by National Research Council, in particular by the Department of Biology, Agriculture, and Food Sciences, that is organized in 3 strategic areas, 18 thematic areas, and the research network is 9 institutes. Actually, talking about genetic diversity, we should remember that plant genetic resources from food agriculture are a composite of different things, different genotypes that belong to our land races, heirloom varieties, modern varieties, crop of wild relatives, and also genetic stocks. And all of these have a direct impact or an indirect impact on agriculture through research and breeding. Many, I should say very many of these genetic resources are stored in sorry for that, are stored in gene banks in Europe, all around the world. And, but as you can see here, for very reduced part of them, characterization and evaluation data are available. You can see here an example of 3 crops, tomatoes, snap bean, and broccoli, in the Eurisco database. Less than 10% of them, evaluation data are available. So the production of the evaluation data and the sharing of the evaluation data is a critical issue. And connected to this, in the biomemory project of CNR, we are trying to collect this information, considering the collection of CNR nationwide, and try to make them available. So, as you can see here, we have collection about plants, about animals, about microorganisms. And the main aim is now to know these resources and make this information available. Talking about collection, CNR collection, we should consider, in particular, the gene bank in Bari, the Mediterranean germplasm gene bank. That is important for two reasons. One is that a quite big germplasm collection, almost 60,000 accessions are there. And also because it was the first, and probably I should say the only national germplasm bank in Italy. It was founded in the early 70s. Now, considering the agroecology, we just learned that agroecology is an holistic approach, trying to combine studies, information, management at a different level. And the biodiversity to know and implement this knowledge for management about the diversity at different levels is very important. One of these levels is to know and try to understand the value of the local varieties. So this is an example of 3 projects that National Council participated or coordinated. Is a Rhizome project, Traditon, is a regional project now going on in Campania region, a Prima project, Legumed. So this is something that also we think that it would be important to know and implement in the practical application. More recently, in these weeks, the new National Research Center for Agricultural Technologies, one of the 5, this is the Agritech Center, is starting its activities. And there are 5 objectives, general objectives of the Agritech Center that are related, generally speaking, to resilience, sustainability, circularity. And CNR participates to 5 of the 9 spokes, as you can see here, that each spoke address one or more of these general objectives. In particular, CNR has the main responsibility of the spoke 1, that is plant, animal, microbiology, genetic resources, and adaptation to climatic changes. And this spoke is organized in 3 work packages and 14 tasks. And the 3 work packages are related one to the other. In the first one, there is the characterization of the genetic resources for adaptation. In the second one, aims to understanding the mechanisms that score resilience. In the third one, there is the breeding on new genotypes with improved resilience. But the main task, the general task of this center, Agritech as well as the other ones, is to raise the level of technologies, the technological input in our agriculture for Agritech. And related to plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, it is very important to exploit the knowledge and the tools for the omics sciences, as well as those related to the new genomic techniques. And concerning this, CNR, through the flagship project of Interomics, has contributed to the sequencing of the genome of the durum wheat, the project led by CREA, participates to high-throughput phenotyping platforms, European one and national one, emphasis in Italy, that are very important platform for accumulating those evaluation data we were talking before, and also to the platform ANAE, that is the one related to the agricultural ecology. But I would like to spend just a few words about the genome editing, controversial issue. Genome editing is a very powerful technology that can, in my opinion, not only in my opinion, address many aspects of plant genetic resources enhancement. I don't want to go into the detail, but these are just 3 applications: de novo domestication, rewilding, correction defects, that can contribute to increase, to combine sustainability genes with productivity genes. And this is very important if we want to fulfill not only environmental sustainability, but also social sustainability and economic sustainability. But to do this, there is also another aspect that we should consider, and then I finish. That is very important, trying to combine all the technologies that we have, trying to exploit the complementarity and the synergy between them. What I want just to say that it is important to build bridges between different levels and areas of research, between different stages of the production and value chain, and also between ideas and expertise. I think that with this approach, we would enhance the value of biodiversity for sustainability much more. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Cardi, for your articulated speech. Okay, now we can go to the third speaker, Professor Carlo Rondinini, full professor of zoology of the Charles Darwin Department of Biology and Biotechnology of the University of Rome Sapienza, will give his talk on biodiversity conservation and sustainable food systems. Please. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks to CREA for organizing this important meeting today. Can I have the slides, please? Thanks. The link between biodiversity and, doesn't move. Can I get the next slide, please? Thank you. The link between biodiversity and food systems is indeed very strong. You can see here the conceptual framework of IPBES, the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services that was mentioned before by my friend and colleague Lorenzo Ciccarese. And this conceptual framework says that biodiversity is at the foundation of ecosystem services. And these ecosystem services include agriculture and food production. Of course, for agriculture, this is an interaction between biodiversity and the anthropogenic assets that produce it. And there are many ways in which biodiversity is at the foundation of food systems. The most well-known for agriculture is insects and insect pollination, which is crucial for the production of many agricultural products of importance for us. But there are many more than these. And I will make just a few examples. I'm a mammalogist. I will make a couple of examples on mammals. Pollination is also provided by many mammals. Several bats are pollinators, very important for crops. But not only bats, even primates, and even some rodents and some small carnivores are pollinators. And there are other functions that support agriculture, including pest control. For example, bats are also excellent pest controls, both in agricultural areas and in urban areas, and seed dissemination. That's particularly interesting because it's important for agriculture, but not directly through dissemination of seeds important for agriculture, or not that much so. But it is important for agriculture because there are keystone species of mammals that maintain forests by disseminating the seeds of forest trees. And these forests have an important local effect on climate mitigation and support healthier agricultural productions. But ironically, while biodiversity supports food systems are the main threat to biodiversity. Can I have the next slide, please? Thanks. So food systems are the main threats, by the way, in the seas and on land. In the seas through overfishing, but we're not talking about it, and on land through the expansion of agricultural areas. Agricultural areas, as everybody in this room knows, need to expand because the human population is increasing, human consumption per capita is increasing, and this requires more natural habitats to be converted to agriculture. The maps you see on the left side of this slide are from a work that we've done with the group of David Tillman a couple of years ago. These show projected expansion of agricultural areas to 2050 under a business as usual scenario, so no change in consumption production patterns, no technological improvement, etc. And as you can see, all areas of the world are interested by an increase in agriculture, and this is particularly true in the northern temperate zones as well as in the tropical areas. On the right side hand, you see the effect, the projected effect by 2050 on the availability of habitat for terrestrial vertebrates, amphibians, birds, mammals, from top to the bottom. And as you can see, there is a projected loss of habitat for all these terrestrial vertebrate species, but it is particularly concentrated in certain areas, and the red bar shows a particularly strong projected loss of habitat for amphibians and mammals, 20% loss and 10% loss for birds in sub-Saharan Africa. Can I have the next slide, please? Thanks. So this is what we expect under a business as usual scenario, but there are ways of reducing substantially this impact. And in this slide here, you see 4 different strategies for reducing the impact, plus their combination on the top panel. And the 4 different strategies are reduction. Well, the first one on the left, top left, is close yield gaps. That means achieving the maximum agricultural production per hectare. Of course, in each area, the maximum is different, and it depends on external conditions, but achieving it by several means, including additional fertilizers, more modern techniques, etc. Whatever closes the yield gaps that exist in many places that produce less than they could. Then there is a half food waste strategy that is self-explaining, a diet shift. That means shifting towards the diet proposed by the Lancet as a healthy diet for the planet, for the people on the planet, and that includes also for people living in developed countries, reducing the amount of meat intake. And the last one is planning, sorry, no, can you go back to the previous one, please? And the last one is better planning of agriculture everywhere. As you can see, all of them more or less half the projected loss of biodiversity for mammoths, but none of them alone is sufficient to halt it. The bars go down to about 10% loss instead of 20% with business as usual. The only strategy that really halts loss of biodiversity with a development of agriculture that feeds 10 billion people in 2050 is a combination of them all. So the message is, yes, we have ways for reducing the impact of agriculture, but the path is narrow and it's not easy to achieve it. But if we did, of course, we would have a great co-benefit because more biodiversity would sustain better agriculture. So that would be a win-win solution. And can I have the next slide and last slide, please? Thanks. This is another example of co-benefits. In this case, this slide is about climate change and projected effect of climate change on the pollinators of cacao. It's an analysis that we have recently submitted for publication. What's the message here? So this analysis compares the current amount of habitat available for the pollinators of cacao. The pollinators of cacao are several species of midges that are small flies. the current with the future projected under climate change and land use change scenario. And you see the effect of climate change on the left and the effect of land use change on the right. These scenarios are standard scenarios of change. We use representative concentration pathways, RCPs, and shared socioeconomic pathways, SSPs. And in this case, we used three of them, three coupled scenarios, SSP1, RCP 2.6, which is a sustainability scenario, SSP 3, RCP 4.5, which is a middle-of-the-road scenario, and SSP 5, RCP 8.5, which is a fossil fuel development scenario, so in business as usual, or even better than business as usual. So what's the main message here again? We use these scenarios to project the climatic envelope where these midges can live and the habitat for these midges. What we see is that while land use change has potentially relatively small effects, and these effects can be positive, negative, depending on the scenario, depending on the region of the world, climate change is always projected to have a negative effect. And the negative effect can be particularly strong in certain areas and under, of course, the scenario with most climate change, which is SSP 5. And the Asian areas where cacao is currently produced could lose habitat for as much as 50% of the cacao pollinators, which of course would mean a big drop in cacao production in the areas where the pollinators are lost. So again, this other example strongly supports the importance of the co-benefits. In this case, co-benefits of mitigating climate change for both biodiversity and agriculture. And overall, the message is that if we really want to sustain agriculture in the coming decades, and we want to achieve the objectives that will be set by the CBD, have been already set by the CBD and will be reinforced by the Convention on Biological Diversity in the meeting in Montreal this year, to move to a nature-positive future, we absolutely need integrated planning across the agricultural and biodiversity sectors. Thank you.
I also thank Professor Rondinini who further enriched the day with interesting ideas. Thank you very much. And now I give the floor to Dr. Luca Buttazzoni, who is connected. Yes, we will not now. We have to wait. Okay, so we can go and see. Okay, we are going to see a video by Dr. Carmelo Troccoli of the Coldiretti National. He is National Director of Campagna Amica Foundation and also Global Coordinator of the World Farmers Markets Coalition. So the video will be exactly on Farmers Market Coalition.
I just talked about the Farmers Market Coalition. I have just 3 minutes. I want to stay in my time. So thank you very much for inviting me today. Just a few words. We talked about the biodiversity, food biodiversity this morning, and the role of science for food biodiversity. I would like to underline the role also that other actors have for food biodiversity. First of all, the role of cities in biodiversity. Why cities? Because are the places, according with the UN data, in the 2019, for the first time in the history of the human life, cities are the places where the majority of people of the world use to live, and they are the places where the majority of the people of the world use to consume food. On the other side, according with FAO, we lost the majority of food biodiversity up to now. And always according with FAO, who are the food biodiversity producers? are the small-scale farmers, family farming, which is the role of the family farming in preserving food biodiversity. It is a crucial role, and I think that is also important to try to understand how we can link cities and family farming. One of the experiments we did in Italy, it is that one of farmers' markets. Farmers' markets are the first step to create a new local food system based on the food biodiversity. We have in Italy, we run in Italy together with other actors more than 1,200 farmers markets that give the chance to 20,000 farmers to join every week cities and to meet directly consumers and to explain them the importance of food biodiversity. But together with the support of FAO, during the Pre-Food System Summit, together with, and I thank him, with Maurizio Martina, we called for a food coalition, FAO, for improving farmers market all over the world. From this project, we create an international platform that is the World Farmers Market Coalition, who involve today 60 associations from 40 countries in the world, more than 200,000 farmers producing local food, biodiversity food, and millions of consumers that want to consume local food. So I don't want to enter into scientific issues because it is not my role here. But the question I have is this one: is it enough, from your point of view, just to preserve the food biodiversity we have today for the future, or we have to move the attention of rebuild the biodiversity system in our planet? How we do it? Which are not only the scientific role, but the concrete actions we need every day, every week to rebuild the biodiversity system in the world. We want to play an important role with the World Farmers Market Coalition in order to link cities, urban area and the rural area to make always much more stronger the need of biodiversity food, not only in Italy, but all over the world. And I thank the support of FAO and the support of the Italian government that with the cooperation system is helping us to open this new pathway all around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Troccoli, for showing us this new concrete solution. And now we can connect with Dr. Buttazzoni, otherwise we can connect with Dr. Buttazzoni. Okay. I introduce you Dr. Buttazzoni, CREA Senior Researcher and National Focal Point for Animal Genetic Research of FAO Commission on Genetic Research for Food and Agriculture, who will give his talk on sustainable animal farming. Good morning, Dr.
Good
Buttazzoni.
morning.
Please take the floor. We can't hear you. There is a problem We have to switch on the...
Okay. Trend is still ongoing. Now, in 2030, world production of meat is expected to grow by 14%, and meat production from developing countries is expected to grow 22%. The same happens with milk. Milk has grown 2.5 times since 1960, and the trend is still rising. We expect, FAO expects 21% increase over the world and 33% increase in the developing countries. Today, about 1.2 billion people live in developed countries and 5.4 in the developing countries. By 2050, the number of living people in developed countries will be pretty much the same. But in developing countries, there will be about 8 billion people. The global demand of products of animal origin will continue to increase due to demographic growth, improving income, and urbanization. Currently, people in developed countries consume nearly 89 kilograms of meat per year. It's carcass weight consumed. While people in developing countries consume 35 kilograms. Next slide, please. So consumptions are expected to grow in developing countries. The environmental footprint of animal production will increase accordingly, partially compensated by improved animal efficiency due to genetics and better management. The real question is, has the world enough resources to feed all the animals needed to meet this growing demand of animal origin? We just heard again from Professor Rondinini that the answer is no. This is the frame to keep in mind while talking about sustainability of animal production. Now, to discuss sustainability, we have to consider its environmental impact, which is different from environmental footprint. For example, going back to water, a research by CREA Politics and Bioeconomy Center showed that in 2018 in Italy, water actually used for drinking and washing by Italian farms is only 2.65% of the national total of fresh water. And in the same year, Italian farms only used 2 terawatt-hours of electricity, which is 0.7% of the total consumption. And in the same time, farms produce 6.8 terawatt-hours of power from biogas, which is more than 4 times what they consumed. In the last decades, animal farming has been mostly challenged for water pollution by nitrates and phosphates. Complex legislations were issued to regulate the spreading of manure, also considering soil vulnerability. For years, spreading of manure has been mainly seen as a dangerous disposal of wastewater. Actually, it is an agronomic practice which maintains soil fertility by adding organic matter. Farms with a biogas plant now fertilize their land with the byproducts of anaerobic digestion. This showed to be an excellent fertilizer also because it retains most of the nitrogen of a substrate. So, animal farming basically is a circular economic activity, since its byproducts can produce more energy than the cycle requires, and it fertilizes the soil used to feed production. However, at a global level, circularity is challenged by feedstuff coming from overseas, mostly soybean meal, I should say. Animal production have to face a number of other issues, ethical issues. For example, people in developed countries have become very sensitive to ethical issues concerning animal production, first of all, animal welfare. It is a complex issue which involves science, beliefs, emotions. Often the debate becomes a confrontation between urban and country residents, and this doesn't help. However, a recent questionnaire by the European Food Safety Agency shows that both in Europe and in Italy, only 15 out of 100 people put ethical principles among their first 3 concerns when they buy food. But today, the greatest threat on sustainability of animal production is given by greenhouse gases emission. At least it's a more urgent threat. Enteric fermentations in ruminants produce methane, a gas with a global warming potential higher than carbon dioxide. According to the 6th IPCC evaluation report, the global warming potential of methane decreases over time in the atmosphere. It is 80 times carbon dioxide after 20 years, 27 after 100 years, and 7 times after 500 years. This depends on the short life of methane, 10 years on average in the atmosphere before getting oxidized to carbon dioxide, which for animal emissions is not fossil but biogenic. Because methane is the second contributor to global warming after carbon dioxide, 60–70%, it is one of the few short-lived greenhouse gases, it has become the natural target for contrasting climate change. For this reason, on November 2, 2021 in Glasgow, over 100 countries signed the Methane Pledge, a very strict commitment to reduce methane emission by 30% within 2030. Over the world, approximately 41% of global methane emission come from natural sources. The remaining 60% is anthropogenic. In the European Union, 53% of anthropogenic methane emissions come from agriculture, mostly from animal farming. In Italy, slightly over 40% of methane is of anthropogenic origin, and about 40% of anthropogenic methane comes from animal, about 30% from enteric fermentation by ruminants, and 10% from manure. Therefore, animals are a major source of methane, and the challenge for animal farming, and especially for ruminant farming, is really serious. Since, next slide please, since in Italy, methane emissions from animal farms decreased by nearly 15% thanks to a reduction in the number of animals and the diffusion of biogas plants. It is relevant to notice that the improvement in animal efficiency have increased the production, for example, of milk yield, while the bovine number decreased sharply. Now it appears that 2 strategies are possible. The first one is to further increase the efficiency of the animals in order to minimize methane emissions per unit of product. The second is to concentrate on producing high-value products, such as PDO products or organic farming, by using local resources, trying to minimize methane emissions per hectare and to maximize circularity. The second option requires the existence of production chains, and it would allow for more circularity and higher attention to breed biodiversity. It would be the choice of quality instead of quantity. In both cases, it will be necessary to activate the maximum number of biogas plants in order to retrieve and exploit most of the biochemical methane potential from manure. Certainly, consumer preferences toward pig and poultry meat may help in reducing methane emissions from animal farming. A reduction in consumption of meat in developed countries appears both possible and attainable. Ideally, under a cooperative approach, people in developed countries should reduce their consumption of food of animal origin, while demand from developing countries should be cooled down. A completely different approach is now offered by the introduction of novel foods. They are produced in laboratories by cultivating animal stem cells. By now, this novel food is authorized only in Israel and Singapore. Many aspects are still to be explored insofar as energy, water, and nutrients use. They use hydrolyzed soybeans and cereals. Also, safety of food produced by intense cell multiplication needs to be scrutinized. Most of all, the concentration of food protein production in high-tech and very costly plants, protected by patents and industrial secrets, is likely to raise concerns. The demand of proteins is so overwhelming that probably also this kind of experiences are likely to spread in one way or another. However, this new approach, certainly fascinating under a technical point of view, fails to realize the complex relations between animals and agriculture. While emitting methane, ruminants feed on pastures that are not suitable for any other productive use, and pastures are a sink of biodiversity, and they return organic matter to the soil. Especially ruminants provide eco-services insofar as they support communities, culture, landscapes, and breed biodiversity. Many systems are already fragile, and they could be lost should animal farming be put at stake. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Buttazzoni, for sharing with us this important information, new insight, especially for the water consumption and methane production. Okay, now we can go to the last part. We can conclude this session, and we are going to watch a video by Professor Paola Imone Marsan of the Department of Animal Science, Food and Nutrition of the University of Piacenza. Thank you, please.
Good morning. Only a handful of animal species have been domesticated, and they are now facing a rapid and irreversible loss of breeds and populations. Recently, FAO estimated that in the last century, 1 breed out of 10 became extinct, and now 1 of 3 is endangered and 1 of 3 is still without information on the degree of risk. Local livestock breeds provide many services to humankind. Ecosystem services by contributing to preserve marginal lands and prevent fires. Cultural services, as they are tightly linked to human traditions and are part of the landscape. In low-income countries also they provide drought power, transportation and savings. But most of all, they are a reservoir of gene variants, those variants that have permitted their survival and production in agro-ecosystems very different for climate, feed availability, parasites and diseases. Losing diversity means losing opportunities to breed better animals and decreases the resilience of the agri-food system to current changing conditions. We are now in the genomic era. DNA tools permit the molecular characterization of biodiversity. Molecular markers are able to assess within and between population diversity and estimate relationships and inbreeding, very important information for breeding and for conservation purposes. They identify genes for sustainability traits as feed efficiency, disease resistance, and stress tolerance. New useful gene variants are discovered at increasing pace in local breeds. The transfer into industrial breeds is possible and can be accelerated by the use of DNA markers. Faster and more precise genome editing technologies do exist, but in many countries they are still awaiting to become applicable. In this frame, research plays a fundamental role. To make the right breeding and conservation decisions, we need to characterize and understand biodiversity, animal interaction with microbial communities, and their impact on natural ecosystems. The increasing demand of animal products, driven by demography and diet changes, is challenging agriculture and the environment. We need to produce more with less, recycling whenever possible. This cannot be done increasing agricultural land that is out of stock, so the only alternative is to sustainably increase yield, minimizing losses and environmental impact while preserving animal welfare. Sustainable intensive agriculture and biodiversity conservation should therefore coexist and be synergistic. Feeding the increasing world population without intensive farming will be hard. Without fully exploiting research and existing biodiversity, it will be difficult in a sustainable manner.
I would like to thank all the speakers for their interesting contribution, and thanks to all those who followed this first roundtable. So now we can go to the second roundtable. I give the floor to the chair of the next roundtable, entitled Healthy Diets for a Healthy Planet. So please, Professor Angelo Riccaboni.
George is missing. See? Okay, so good morning, everybody, and thanks for inviting me to coordinate this very interesting and challenging session on healthy diets for a healthy planet. And I would like to thank FAO and CREA for organizing such an interesting initiative. And also to give a role and visibility to science and innovation. And we do believe that after COVID, we are all aware that science and innovation are so important in our society, so anything goes in this direction, I think is very relevant. I have with me today here Catherine Leclerc, Senior Researcher, Research Center Food and Nutrition, CREA, Giorgio Matteucci, Director of the Institute of Bioeconomy, Anna Maria Bevivino, Head of Laboratory Agri-Food Sustainability, Quality and Safety of ENEA, and Annalisa Noce, Associate Professor, Department of Systems Medicine, University Tor Vergata. We will also have a video by the cluster Agri-Food Nazionale. Great. So the topic we are dealing with in this session is a really challenging one, which is healthy diets for a healthy planet. We are all aware that diets have an impact on individual health, and COVID, I think, highlighted this, because we saw that vulnerable people are those we had problems with very often linked to nutrition, and they had problems with the diabetes or cardiovascular diseases or even some forms of cancer related to nutrition, and that was a clear learning we had during COVID. But also we are more and more aware that diets have an impact on our planet. Again, also COVID taught to us that the way food is produced and what we eat has an influence on the environment. So the real challenge is how to have diets which are healthy, which are able to induce individual health, but at the same time, they are able to have not a negative impact on the environment. This is really a big challenge. And this is, if you like, is the role of research. So research is also in charge of it. And there's a growing evidence that, for instance, the Mediterranean diet is a diet which is able to induce both individual health and the environment health. but also other diets, they do it. But the Mediterranean diet is certainly a good example. But the situation is more complex because we don't need only evidence of the impact of the diets, which is very important. But also we need that these diets are affordable. And as Ismahan El-Ouafi said this morning, we need to take care also of SDG 1 and SDG 10. So we need affordability. But we need also taste, because if it is not tasty, it is difficult to have the impact that we would like to have. But also we need to avoid social negative consequences. So we cannot induce a kind of a diet which brings about difficulties in our societies or creates problems and tensions. And so this is not an easy task. So this is why we need innovation which must be technological, but not only technological, it was said before, it should be social, organizational, but also in terms of education. And just to conclude, and just the 3 points I would like to highlight is that first we need that this happen at the level of the food system, the entire food system, because we have not highlighted enough that one of the main outcomes of the Sustainable Food System Summit last year is that we need to talk in terms of food systems, not even in terms of food value chains, but food systems. So the responsibilities of regulators, of educators, of investors, financial institutions, producers, processors, consumers, which makes everything much more complex. But we need to have this holistic view, otherwise it's not. And just a few words on regulators. As we know, we need regulations that do not harm or put difficulties, for instance, in the local productions or in productions typical of the Mediterranean diet. So I'm clearly referred to the debate about Nutri-Score and the Eco-Score. So that is a very important issue, that regulation is in line with that. But also we need that so-called, as Ambassador Arki said, a multilateral approach. So we need to work together. And this multilateral approach, we need to put farmers at the center of our conversation. We, also as researchers, we tend to overlook the role of farmers. So we need farmers having the right degree of profitability. We need farmers to have a decent life, and we need to put it at the center. So we need to look at the food system. We need to have a multilateral approach, putting together different actors. And just to conclude, this is also the role of PRIMA. PRIMA is a major initiative which is, has been launching 168 projects in the Mediterranean with a budget of €500 million. And we have 168 projects with 1,600 research units working together under the same research and innovation agenda, and we have almost 10,000 researchers being part of the same community. So we need this kind of scale. Also because the next step will be to scale up. And maybe this is something that we need to be more focused on. We need more energy, more investments, more activities on the scale up of our solutions, because we do produce wonderful solutions. Science is there, research is there, but we need to bring our ideas from our labs to our communities, enterprises. This is the challenge for the future. And I think that we need to work together. And it was mentioned, agri-tech. Agri-tech for Italy is a major opportunity. It is a major opportunity because there is a lot of money, a lot of efforts, a lot of commitment. We cannot miss it. That is an epochal opportunity for this country to work in order to make our research and our innovation available for our communities and our enterprises. But I would like to stop here. Maybe I said even too much, because we have here 4 great contributors, and I would like to start with Catherine Leclerc at CREA. Please, Catherine, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, really, my name is Marica Ferrari because I'm in substitution of Catherine Leclerc. It's that she doesn't feel good, but that's fine because we are working together for healthy diets and a healthy planet. So, the new definition of healthy and sustainable diet it's funded by FAO and WHO in 2019 clarify well how the connection among the different aspects of sustainability of the healthy dietary choices. In fact, consider the dimension of health, including nutrition, food safety, the prevention of non-communicable disease. Also include the dimension of environment, of economic aspects, culture, tradition, and society. In addition, take in consideration the assessment of the trade-off in terms of dimensions, solutions that have to be in conflict. So it's very important to work on the ensure policy coherence for each strategy that we develop to move versus a healthy diet, sustainable diet. From the environment dimension, we know that we need to rapidly to move versus a reduction of carbon and water footprint, also to reduction or a conversion of land use that are related to productions, processes, and distribution of food. All of these ensuring adequate food availability, because we know that till 2030 there will be 800 million persons that we will have to feed. So we have to increase the production, but at the same time we have to ensure inside the planetary boundaries of tolerability of our planet using alternative sources, but also to optimize the primary sources that we have to use for real need of population in a sustainable lifestyle and system. To reach, this is a big challenge, and the CREA and the different research centers of CREA are working a lot of this, and also to reach part of Sustainable Development Goals. In this my brief presentation, I want to focus only on these important development goals regarding responsible food production and consumption. So all sustainable partners of food consumption and food production have to work together to go in the same line with the coherence, and we have to improve the sustainable methods of production, but at the same time we have to improve dietary choices versus the same strategies. This is a very important multidisciplinarity of to work together for the same to reach the same goals, and Korea are working a lot of this scientific to give a scientific support of the strategies, also for the policy. The changes that we have to do. It's important that are not so theoretical changes, but also practical. So we have to evaluate the feasibility of the strategies and the impact of quantitative significant aspects. The action for the implementation of a healthy and sustainable diet, it's the principle is to use the important tool of development of food-based dietary guidelines. And we know that in one document developed from FAO in 2016, FAO for all the countries that we need to include sustainable aspects in the next dietary guidelines. We have not to all consider health aspects, but also consider all economic, social, environment aspects together. In Italy, the CREA of Research Center of Food and Nutrition response to this call. In fact, in the last updated dietary guidelines in 2018, we included also the sustainable, the guidelines referred to sustainable aspect. This is diet sustainability. Everyone can contribute, the consumer, the citizen can contribute. And together the production. So we give some dietary suggestions, not only for the health, but only for give a solution for economic and environment dimensions. So it's important. It's important to the synergy of that solution, that the policy that have to be with coherence. The second action that we have to do is the harmonization of food data, because we have a lot of data of food database that have to be to speak together with the same system code. So better data, we will have a better policy for towards healthy diet and healthy planet. For our point of view, the CREA Food and Nutrition Center is the referent institution to provide such microdata or individual data of food consumption at the national level to EFSA, including the Food Comprehensive Database that collect all the European food consumption database. And we had the first Italian center and the Italian country that supply with such data. With the EFSA harmonization and also in the platform at the European level, and also in the platform of FAO Gift that collect all the countries of all the world food consumption database, and to find the same harmonization of the food category. This is just one example of the research activity of the different centers of CREA that work for the same goals of mitigation and resilience of climate change. We have a lot of scientific expertise that collaborate together in the same project, in network and working group at the national and international level to find the same solution to give versus a new strategies to improve healthy diet for healthy planet. So this is the last slide that clarify as the dietary guidelines have to take in consideration not only health aspect, so also all the agriculture research that before think about only the production now have to move versus a different aspect and to collaborate together with the multidisciplinary aspects to reach the goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you for representing what CREA is doing in this very interesting field. And now the question is for Giorgio Matteucci, what CNR is doing in terms of promoting healthy diets for a healthy planet. Giorgio, the floor is yours.
Thank you for having invited me in this very timely and urgent debate on agri-food system based on circular economy. We all have in front of us a big challenge, and I think that events like these are important in setting the point and taking the right pace to tackle these very important challenges. We are speaking about healthy diets for a healthy planet. So diet is something that is related to the single person, to the people, and we know that this is something difficult to be changed. Let's say top down. It's something that need to be considered, let's say bottom up, and the habit for healthy diets are something that should be favored, but also should be considered in the whole concept of social, personal, and economic part. So, for example, as an example, the more sustainable diet, like eating less meat or being vegetarian, this is steeply increasing in Italy or also all over in the world. But I mean, it's not. So it's something that it's occurring, let's say, slowly. So we need to work on this also through our food production system, and because we have to consider tradition, and everything that is forced is normally not accepted and will take much longer and will be also critical in the consideration. I think also this has been tackled during the first roundtable. But we can make surely an impact, and also by simple things like eating and selecting products that are produced in the season, so not out of season products. These are bring along a much larger impact, and to select short travel if possible for our product. At the same time, but we have to consider that we have to feed nearly 8 billion people in the world, 60 million in Italy, and so this has to be done in an affordable way. I think the chairperson of the roundtable rightly tackled this point during the introduction, because if this will not be affordable in terms of the production system, but also from the consumer side, it will not be taken and brought forward. And to have healthy diets, we need a healthy environment. I think this has been already said. But in that sense, we need mixed landscapes. So all the choices that would imply an increase of agricultural surfaces are not good, are not sustainable, because we need that the landscape is mixed. So we have to mix these healthy choices with sustainable intensification. I think this word has been said already, I think at least from 3 different speakers already this morning. But we have to translate this from a buzzword, from something like we all say, to reality. So in that sense, innovation, it's key. So produce more sustainable, but without reducing the amount of food produced, obviously, except the waste and the unsustainable production that this can be also considered, and produce them in the right place. So it's clear that we cannot produce everything in all places, and sometimes also having this food produced not so close but not so far are really things that are good to make this let's say one health system. So healthy diet, healthy environment, and healthy food system. Very important. Communication. So we have to be clear, but at the same time we have to communicate in a way that the people, the consumer, is not feeling guilty of doing really something bad, because and sometimes this is also a way to move away the responsibility from, let's say, maybe the production side to the consumption side. So we need to do both, and we need to do it very in a very good way. In that sense, CNR, the Department for Agri-Food Sciences, it's doing a lot of research and also communication in that field, also considering that the different expertise of the nearly 1,000 people that are working in the department in 9 different institutes, considering, let's say, food production, food consumption, and also the consumer side. So really having we have project on involving consumer in the design of new food or new diet, and also considering their appreciation on new diet and also novel food. I think that there are a number of projects that have been mentioned here that are starting thanks to the Next Generation EU funding that is called here in Italy, PNRR. Agritech has been already mentioned with 9 so-called spokes that tackle really all from the genetic that my colleagues of CNR just told in the previous roundtable, to the production of food, precision agriculture to make sustainable intensification real, and also to consider the economic side of all these, and not only. And there is also another project, so-called extended partnership, that is called On Foods, coordinated by University of Ferrara, that it's really, the topic is sustainable nutrition, and from the production side to the malnutrition. So I think this will be also really key project to consider this. But I have to mention also 2 other projects that have been funded by Italy and EU, the so-called PON funding. One is eCrops, that is a very large public-private project on precision agriculture, and one is Agrifood, that is on functional foods. And this is also something that can be really relevant for healthy diets, so to give health to the people also while they are eating. Thanks.
Thank you, Giorgio, and for showing which are the projects of CNR on this topic. And now the floor to representative of Enea, Anna Maria Bevivino. Please, the floor is yours, and the question is always the same. What you are doing in this field, and your opinion on the importance of this topic.
Thanks very much for your introduction. I'm going to talk about the solution towards sustainable healthy diets sourced from agricultural ecosystems. As previously introduced by Professor Riccaboni, it's important to start from the agricultural system. Okay. So there are 4 important points to be underlined in this presentation. In particular, the increase of the awareness on healthy, sustainable diets. We underline as it's important to increase this awareness, also to improve use of underutilized plant sources. As you can see in this slide, there are different the impact of different plant-based protein respect to animal-based protein in concern climate impact, climate impact change, and in particular is, as you can see, also the improving food and nutrition security and resilience in food production. So there is important to develop new solutions to healthy plant-based food products. And several research projects are ongoing on this topic. And yes, we have to start from soil. Soil is where food begins, so it's important. The soil is crucial to food security and nutrition. And the healthy soil is a dynamic ecosystem that is rich in microbial diversity that govern the plant productivity and the food quality. As a new solution, an important new solution is given by microbiome. Microbiome-based solution is important not only to cover the crop productivity, but also to increase the nutrition, the food quality, and also the great impact of the human gut microbiome. As you can see in this slide, it's important to, I don't know, okay. In this context, okay, I don't move anyway. The microbiome has a great impact on the One Health. So is at the center of the One Health concept and the food system concept. This picture is developed during the position paper developed by Comitato Nazionale Biosecurity. And so you can see that the microbiome is govern the entire food system. Another important point is the biosolution that has both macro-based solution but also plant-based solution that can favor the crop production but also increase the food quality, because microbial biostimulants activity is not be limited only to plant soil scope but also govern the production of human health and promoting foods to their potential role in food quality. Within this topic, we are involved in the SIMBA project. The SIMBA project is funded by Horizon 2020 program. And at the center of this project is the microbiome, the entire food chain. So moving towards a food system that is more environmental sustainable, climate resilient, and resource efficient and consumer centered. So this important view, the soil microbiome application, appear to be a promising tool capable to foster a significant increase in crop yield, but also in food quality. And an important aspect is the research infrastructure MetroFood that is led by Enea. And this infrastructure is governed has 4 missions, in particular to enhance quality and reliability of measurement results, but also to make available and share data and enhance scientific excellence in the field of quality and safety, and strengthen scientific knowledge, promoting scientific cooperation and integration. So all the aspects that are discussed in this morning are important, and the MetroFood infrastructure represents an important tool to give important solution on this topic. And is subdivided into physical and electronic research infrastructure with different activity, and so from food quality and food soil quality and different aspects of this topic. Another important aspect is the agroecological innovation for a sustainable food system. This is an holistic approach that supports sustainable agriculture production in particular levels, at the farmer level but also at the food system level, ensuring the delivery of healthy, nutritious, affordable food. And within this agroecological innovation, in particular, Enea is involved in the scaling up agroecological innovation in the transition of Mediterranean food system, with different important goals, and the outcome will be focused in the extend the One Health perspective to the entire ecosystem, from human, culture, and ecosystem health. An important underline an aspect of the activity. The other activities are present in the website, in which you can find the different abstracts that with the different publication of the NEA in this sector. But another thing I like to underline that the memorandum of understanding that was signed in 2018 between FAO and the research institute such as CNR, CNEA, ISPRA, and CREA is important because the topics of this meeting is underlined in the memorandum of understanding. So we wish to continue the fruitful collaboration with the memorandum of understanding in order to underline the important collaboration between the Italian Research Institute on not only on this topic, but the three teams that are present in this journey. Thanks you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Anna Maria, also for highlighting the importance of a Mediterranean perspective. I would like to highlight the relevance of the very recent World Conference on the Mediterranean Diet, which was held in Bari a few weeks ago. And it is clear that the experience of the Mediterranean can be very useful in order to deal with the challenges in front of us at the European level, because unfortunately in the Mediterranean we are used to the droughts or the water scarcity, and especially in the southern coast. And this is part of the contribution that we as Mediterranean and Italian researchers, we can give to the global conversation, because food security requires new solutions. In this part of the world we have been working on it for a long time, so this is something really identitarian that we can offer as researchers. And this is also the conversation I was saying to Paola Aimone and Massan before, that we are having a conversation with the Commission in order to have the new Prima 2, and it is a lot of money going to the south of Europe, to the Mediterraneans, and this money comes from Belgians, from Swedish, from all over Europe. And the question that Europe is asking itself is how come, why we should give money to the Egyptian researchers or to the Italian researchers? And the answer should be, and we are working on it, to show that there is an added value from our research, from our experience, in order to tackle the challenges which requires all countries, because also in Germany now they have the same problems that we, or even Morocco has. So I think the point you raise is very important, to see how we can contribute to the global conversation on these issues, because there are many things that we can offer. Okay, thank you, Anna Maria. Now the floor to Annalisa Noce from University Tor Vergata. Please, Annalisa.
I would like to thank the organization for the invitation and the chairman that introduced myself. In my relation, I will explain the beneficial effects of extra virgin olive oil minor polar compounds in chronic kidney disease. Chronic kidney disease is a real problem for public health, and currently more than 800 million people are affected by this pathological condition. Moreover, it was speculated that CKD in 2040 will become the fifth cause of death in the world. The CKD increased prevalence is related to the spread of risk factors such as arterial hypertension, diabetes mellitus, obesity, and CKD itself represents a risk factor for cardiovascular morbidity and mortality. In the clinical management of CKD is very important the combination between pharmacological treatment set according to international guideline with the nutritional treatment characterized by a control protein intake set according to CKD stage. In this context, functional food have an additional and relevant role. Among functional food, extra virgin olive oil plays a pivotal role, and its health effects are related to minor polar compound contents. Among minor polar compounds, the greatest health effects are exerted by hydroxytyrosol and oleocanthal. The first has a neuroprotective effect that was observed in animal model and is able to counteract LDL oxidation. The second one has anti-inflammatory action by the inhibition of COX-1 and COX-2 enzymes. My research team, for the first time, demonstrated in CKD patients the beneficial effect of extra virgin olive oil characterized by high content in minor polar compound. In this pilot study, we evaluated the possible beneficial effects of 2 different HIVO characterized by a different content of minor polar compounds. The 2 selected HIVO were analyzed by APLC-ZMS to establish the minor polar compound content. In particular, the first HIVO, called TB, was characterized by a medium content of minor polar compound. The second HIVO, called MOS, was characterized by a high content of minor polar compound. The study population was treated with one of the 2 selected HIVOs at a dose of 40 milliliter days for 9 weeks. At the end of the study, we demonstrated the potential antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effect of HIVO characterized by a high content in minor polar compounds, probably related to high content in oleocanthal. Moreover, we demonstrated only in the patient treated with HIVO characterized by high content of minor polar compound a significant reduction of oxidative stress. This preliminary data was confirmed by our following clinical trial. In this clinical trial, we demonstrated that the daily consumption of 40 milliliters of HIVO characterized by a high content for minor polar compound for 9 weeks was able to reduce inflammatory status and oxidative stress, to improve body composition, nutritional assessment, and renal function, and to positively modulate lipid metabolism and purine metabolism. In order to evaluate if these beneficial effects were maintained over time, we retested after 2 months washout period the same parameter that we evaluated at baseline, and we demonstrated that only HIVO characterized by a high content of minor polar compounds was able to maintain over time the beneficial effect. And we speculated that this healthy effect was related to the positive modulation by polyphenols of gut microbiota. We also demonstrated, also in CKD patients, the cardioprotective action of an HIVO characterized by very high content of minor polar compounds, more than 800 ppm. At the end of the study, we highlighted a reduction of inflammatory and oxidative stress parameters and improvement in lipid and purine metabolism and body composition. According to the circular economy strategy, it is very important the recovery and the reuse of waste. This process is beneficial for economy and environment only if the final products are standardized and obtain using sustainable and industrial technology. At this regard, we formulated 2 functional foods, in particular functional bars, contain macronizzatic power and extract rich in polyphenols from leaves of Olea europea L and grape film of Vitis vinifera L. These functional bars were tested in our pilot study. In this study, we evaluated the impact of functional bars and adapted physical activity on quality of life in CKD patients. The study population was divided into 4 groups. The first group was treated with physical exercise and functional bars. The second group was treated only physical exercise. The third group was treated only physical bars. The fourth group represented the control group. At the end of the study, after 12 weeks, we demonstrated all in groups A and B an improvement of body composition, blood pressure, lipid metabolism, and functional tests. In this study, we confirm adaptive physical activity effectiveness and demonstrate the adjuvant role of natural bioactive compound containing functional bars in counteracting the comorbidities related to CKD. In conclusion, a protein control diet in combination with the functional food, in particular with an EVO characterized by a high content of minor polar compounds, seems to be a new tool in the clinical management of CKD patients. Moreover, our data show that minor polar compounds exert also in CKD patients cardioprotective, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and neuroprotective action. Finally, the circular economy represents a modern strategy to recover waste and to formulate functional food able to exert beneficial effect in patients affected chronic degenerative and non-communicable disease. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Annalisa. And now we have a video, I think, on the experience of the CLAN, Cluster Agrifood Nazionale.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mauro Fontana, the current president of the National Agri-Food Technological Cluster. First of all, I would like to thank CREA for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this special event, Agri-Food Systems Based on Circular Economy, organized during FAO Science and Innovation Forum. I am very pleased and honored to briefly introduce our cluster within the Roundtable on Healthy Diets for a Healthy Planet. The Italian agri-food system has always been a model of sustainable production and consumption, able to combine the growing needs of the world population with the competitiveness of agri-food sector, respecting environment, local communities, and social growth. Today, it faces complex and unprecedented challenges related to the current and persistent climate of uncertainty due to recent COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and the impacts of climate change. We believe that research and innovation can play a key role in tackling all of them. We encourage the collaboration among companies, trade associations, universities, research organizations, training bodies, and local representatives in order to generate synergy and enhance the excellence of Italian-made food products through the development of a consolidated and inclusive network with a specific focus on issues like environmental sustainability, healthy and food safety. Therefore, we deeply appreciate the centrality of science, technology and innovation in today's debate, as well as the multi-stakeholders approach taken by the organizers. We wish you a fruitful workshop and thank you for taking up the challenge of working together to discuss how to meet the goals of the UN 2030 Agenda.
Cluster. Okay, so it was very useful to listen also to the contribution by the cluster. Agrifood Nazionale, as you know, is one of the Italian clusters, grouping universities, research centers, and enterprises engaged on agri-food systems. Okay, so we heard the opinion and the contribution by the representative of major institutions in Italy, CREA, CNR, Enea, but also very high-quality universities like Tor Vergata and the CLAN. And I do thank speakers because they kept the time and they were able to illustrate their activities in a very few minutes, which is good. Now we have some more minutes just for a second and very brief round of the table, just to ask our colleagues their opinion about the challenges that we tackle in the field of healthy diets for a healthy planet. I think that the discussion and presentations were very intense, very, very interesting, and they showed that there are many perspectives in this field. As usual, agri-food system is a very complex and fascinating field where many angles are important, and you heard of different contributions. I would like to say also, before giving the floor to them, that CREA has built a platform collecting all the contributions, or many contributions, on this field, so that is a very nice service that the CREA is giving to our community, so please take advantage of this platform, and if you want to add your production, please do it. And that is a nice service for our community. So now I would like to ask our colleagues here just a few words for each of them about this. I mean, based upon your activities and your experience, which are the key actions, the key activities that should be done in the future in order to ensure healthy diets for a healthy planet? So just a comment saying what you think is a priority. I mean, what do you, as a researcher, as a scientist, what do you think is best to do in the next few years in order to work in a field so important but so difficult, like to promote healthy diets for a healthy planet? So I would go in reverse order. I would like to start with Annalisa. Annalisa, which is your idea on this, on how to tackle this challenge?
About the effect of a healthy diet on the impact of the healthy status of the individual is very important. In fact, an healthy diet, like a Mediterranean diet, is a tool for counteract the onset and then the progression of chronic degenerative non-communicable disease. In fact, it's a new tool for the clinician to counteract only the onset, but also the comorbidities related to this pathological condition, for my opinion. In fact, we, in our university, we test some nutritional treatment in combination with functional food to use with the clinical management of patients in combination with the pharmacological treatment. It's a new strategy for the clinician for treat these patients, for my opinion.
This is a very medical perspective, of course, because you are a researcher in that field. Okay, good. Anna Maria, which are the priorities or the most important activities to be performed in the next future in order to deal with this challenge?
Yes, thank you. For my point of view, I want to stress the principal point that we have to improve the collaboration about institutions that have to do different scientific point of view. So if we have excellence, if we have projects, if we have scientific indication, but we need to optimize our results in the field, in different fields of production, consumption, and processes, and to optimize the results to go in the same direction, so without the dispersion of energy, of results, and so on. And I think that we have a good opportunity because we have a lot of data, a lot of results that can give scientific support to the strategy to move versus sustainable healthy diets.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we need to overcome the silos approach, so we need to work together in order to, maybe it is one point that we should have highlighted also before, that as we said, agri-food systems is a really interdisciplinary and fascinating, multifaceted field, and so we need also answers given by multidisciplinary teams and working together, which is not very easy, also in terms of how the researchers' careers are built. So it's something very, very challenging, but definitely you're right. We need to overcome the so-called silos approach, where everybody works just in his or her own area. So now, please, if you can comment on the most important activities to be done, please.
Okay. I agree with all of you regarding the importance of the cooperation between the institutions, but I underline that we need to change the way of producing, because it's important to change the way of producing, starting from the soil. So I underline the importance of the agroecological approach, but improving the soil quality for to produce healthy products. So different research activities are open. I think that important to come back to the soil, to change the way of producing by integrating the different competences, and then in particular reducing the chemical inputs, so reducing the pesticide, fertilizer, chemical fertilizer. So this is important to produce the food for healthy planet, to respect the planet. And I think that an important possibility is to continue the cooperation between the institutions in the memorandum understanding, but also the research project that will be funded by PNRR represent an important goal to reach this objective. Different kind of solution will be underlined, but another important is to focus on the regulation, because in this aspect, in this context, the very different important goal is to improve the regulation on the application of these new products for the soil, but also to regulate this aspect, and moving to a linear way of production to a circular economy production, so to valorize all the food products in the entire system.
Thank you. Yes, that is very important. I would like just to highlight the point of soil. Somebody has mentioned soil before, but you probably know that the European Commission within Horizon Europe launched 5 missions. They are the priorities for them, for the Commission in terms of research and innovation. And one of the 5 is about soil. And Italy has a very long tradition on research in soil, but it is fragmented. So this point goes to the other point that we are maybe too fragmented. And so we need to find ways to participate to the mission soil in a less fragmented way. And I say so also because it's an internal communication to our community of researchers. There are very large, very important, very rich calls on soils by the mission. And the challenge is that we as Italy participate in the right way, because the calls will be very competitive. And there are many funds in that. So we need to build partnerships, strong partnerships, because otherwise it will not be easy to participate to such conversations. So I take this opportunity to say with the other delegate to the mission soil, I am the delegate of the government to the mission soil together with Professor Ruggero from Sassari, and we are trying, we would like to make some innovation also in this field to try to create partnerships larger than usual, because otherwise really it's not easy to get those funds and to valorize the research being conducted in Italy on soil, which is highly fragmented. Also, if you have ideas, if you want to contact me, I would be pleased to have a dialogue on this issue, because it's extremely important. Okay, and now Giorgio from CNR, Giorgio Matteucci.
Thanks. So thanks for all the presentation that were really stimulating, and also the point raised for discussion. I think, we have to involve in this challenge all the actors from all the regions of the world. So we are hosted by FAO, that it's global, and it's maybe also more, let's say, sometimes focused on the south part of the world, that it's really important. So to change our food system, we need that the healthy diets reach all the people. In that sense, all the actors should be involved, but also considering the local knowledge and local tradition, that it's often sustainable by history sometimes. And also to consider that there is no one single way of doing agriculture, of producing food. We have several ways. We have organic agriculture, we have conventional agriculture, we have biotechnology, we have greenhouses. All of them can help and can be made all more sustainable. For example, a little bit of increasing the production per hectare of organic agriculture, or decreasing the impact and the use of chemicals, as just said, by conventional agriculture, driving biotechnology to the health part of the food, and to the adaptation to climate change and so on. So we need all the tools that we have developed in the history, and now maybe we have the effort and also the push for doing this, considering, and also by reducing the fragmentation of the research sector, and also the transfer of the knowledge to the production sector. So I think these are important points to be considered for reaching the goal.
Thank you, Giorgio. Okay, good. So we finished in time, I guess. I don't know if there is a burning question for our speakers. If there is anybody who would like to raise one question, we have a few minutes, but usually it's very difficult. It's like the Cineforum in Italy when the movie is over, nobody raises questions because it's very difficult, but there will be room also later. So we can do it later at the end of the sessions. Good. So thanks a lot for your contribution. I would like to thank the representatives of CREA, CNR, ENEA, and University Tor Vergata for their speeches, and please join me in a big applause to our speakers. Thank you very much.
think, che devo fare? Questo? It's better. And this is an issue related to sustainability, but also on malnutrition. We saw before that Luca Buttazzoni said that need fresh water, we need energy to produce, and so what we waste, it's also a waste of energy and of fresh water, what the basic that we need. I would like just to underline the importance of waste, because we waste more than we weight, because a normal person weighs about 60, 80 kilos, and we waste more than 100 kilos per year per person. So it's important, the dimension of waste. And we waste food, the wasted food could feed 4 times 800 of million hungry people. So there are not only a problem of sustainability, but also of malnutrition. There are several implications, and we have different types of analysis on this. And for this, I would like, first of all, to thank our speaker. And they have had a different approach in the analysis. And I want to underline that I have 10 minutes maximum, and I will be inflexible on the time, and sorry from now for this. So let's start. I would like to introduce you, Mrs. Chiara Nobili from INEA. She's the coordinator of Agri-Food Working Group in the framework of the Italian Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform. She answers to the question, which are the contribution, but also the contradiction of our food system and the SDGs. So, Chiara, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you for the invitation, and for the invitation in this third roundtable, in which the transition toward the circular economies is considered as an opportunity to tackle food waste. And as all of us know, through more efficient use of resources, the circular economy can lead to economical growth and to the climate change mitigation and toward new market opportunities. On the other side, food loss and waste and surplus are strictly related to an efficient use of resources, and these inefficiencies can lead to a severe impact, not only at the environmental level, but also at social economic level. So this, how can I go on? Okay. So these inefficiencies has to be called systemic contradiction in the current food system that has to be reoriented toward sustainable development goals. Some of these are, for example, of sustainability and resilience of our agricultural system. Just think of the depletion of environmental sources on which agricultural system depends, or, for example, coexistence in pleasant time of food waste and hunger, or, for example, malnutrition, their coexistence in pleasant time of obesity and lack of essential nutrients. But how can we overcome this contradiction? We are confident that introducing sustainable methods of food production and consumption in line with the circular principle, like eliminate, circulate, and regenerate, we can start to build a food system in which food production can create biodiversity, or food safety, health and nutrition can be considered in a holistic approach, or the introduction of circular bioeconomy can, from farm to consumer, can become reality. Okay, but let's focus on food waste, where it is generated. Food waste is generated all along the food system, from primary production, post-harvesting, processing, distribution, consumption, and post-consumption. And what can be the solution or the circular strategy to counteract food waste? They may be considered only in a systemic approach, and to close the gaps and to overcome the unsustainability of our food system. And let's think of the introduction of a microbial consortium, as said my colleague before, or the upcycling for the enhancement of second raw material for the food and non-food production, or the cascading use of biomass to prevent waste, or don't forget that the most production and consumption of food occur in cities. So important to implement all the action that prevent food in cities. So for example, urban agriculture, and last but not least, food banks that are, yes, strictly related to the distribution of surplus, but are also strictly related to the decrease of greenhouse gases emission. But as for instruments with which we can tackle food waste, they have to be strictly related to this action, this circular action, with which we can tackle food waste, and we can call this circular action as circular economy best practices, or good practices better. And succeeding strategy has to comprehend the analysis of these good practices, and this good practice has to be connected with circular pillar in which it is implemented the most. And for example, okay, I describe a study we performed last year, collecting and analyzing 55 best practices in the repository of our platform, and these practices show that they are representative of all the steps in the food system, but they are quantitatively most representative in the downstream of the food processing. And when we related them to circular pillars, we saw that the most represented pillar is these related to the surplus distribution, but less is represented in terms of elongation of end of life of product and the promotion of the food product as a service. So this analysis tells us that more work has to be done in the upstream of the process, but independent of a part of this specific result, we can see that the analysis of the good practice can lead to devising effective strategies to close the gap and overcome the unsustainability of our food system. So we start describing the problem, these strategies and the instrument, but it's not enough, because we have to share our knowledge and we have to share it at all the level and with for example, startups, charities, as my colleague said before, memorandum of understanding within scientific entities, but also, for example, in platform. Here, I gave you an example of platform, the Italian circular economy stakeholder platform led by Enea, that with the aim of shared knowledge and think about the measure criticism and critical aspect in food waste. For example, because in this platform, the correspondent platform that is of the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform, there is the Agrifood working group that deals with the three priorities that you can see in this slide. So, to conclude, we hope that each strategy drawn to overcome food waste has to be accompanied by new vision of an interconnected agri-food system in which multi-stakeholder aid and action can lead to a new vision and of circularity and sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you to Chiara Nobili, and she said circular economy and circular management. Not easy to achieve, but these are some solutions that we have to build. We have to. From good practices, good construction of circular economy to legal framework. On a legal framework on food waste. This is the focus of the following speech, which are the linkages between food waste and law. Professor Ferdinando Albisini, who is the director of Master Course in Food Law, please give us some answer.
This is a very difficult task. I came here just to put questions, not giving answers. And, you know, the conclusion of my short speech will be putting questions to the politics and to rediscover the term common agricultural policy. It is not by chance. So the idea, the word on which I insisted, is that of European and national challenges. I think we are now in a situation of great challenge. And of course, I mentioned it, and I will do some short mention in this speech about the European Green Deal, and especially on the Common Agricultural Reform. But first of all, I want to thank to the organizer of this meeting, to the FAO, to the CREA, to Dr. Vaccari, and thank also because now I am arriving with the very, how to say, more boring part of the meeting. We listened to very interesting scientific speeches. I'm just going back now on the rules. And the question is, what is the rule of law in food waste? Because usually, and I am a little bit frightened because I see the army just here looking to me, and so I don't know if I made something wrong already. But the trouble is, are we looking to law just as regulation, a set of rules, so crimes, penalties, and so on? Or maybe we must look to rule also as part of an educational process. And of course, the answer is yes. And the consumer looks to law to find answer. I read some year ago in a paper of an American colleague that when we are speaking about food, we are not speaking about food, we are speaking about anxiety. Because we have so many chances and possibilities today that we have so many possibilities to be in error and to do something bad. And this is a position which my old generation went through. When I was very young, there was no discussion and there was no anxiety on the approach to food. There was the mother of the family, which was a very powerful government, and she decided what to eat and how much to eat. There was no matter of waste, going back to waste. Because if you leave something, you have to eat it, or otherwise you will have something the day after and the day after and so on. So that economy, but we passed, my generation, all you are very young, you don't remember that time, but we passed from that time of not having enough food to a time in which we have too much food, and in some cases, and we listened to the speeches of this morning, even food which may be dangerous if not carefully considered. So the problem and the role of law is this one, which puts really in connection rules, legislation, but even culture and behavior. And so, I mean, the legislation must be conscious of this. A second consideration, which I wanted to add to what I listened this morning. I was very, how to say, satisfied to hear in many of the speeches of this morning coming back that expression, food security. Food security seemed to many, how to say, scholars, even in the area of food law or in the area of European law, something old, no more useful. Everybody was speaking only about food safety. And I make a test every first day of my lessons to the students in university. What do you think about sicurezza alimentare, which is the Italian expression? They just think to food safety. Italian students in the Italian university, they do not have the idea of food security. And what is important, even European official documents coming from the Commission after the mad cow crisis and in the first decades of this century, they were no more interested to food security. Nowadays, we rediscover food security, not only in the very, how to say, interesting speeches of this morning, but we find again food security in the last documents of the European Commission. And we also have another significant expression which has been used by the Parliament during the discussion of the last reform of past December. I must put my watch because as all the lawyers, I always guilty of not respecting the deadline, so I will try to be diligent. And the European Parliament, discussing the last reform, spoke for the first time of a global food security, in the idea that food security cannot be given on a local basis, not on a national basis. You know that someone is rediscovering today this expression, food sovereignty, with a very different meaning from the original meaning which came from South American liberation movements. But the trouble is that we are now in a situation after pandemia, after wars and so on, and everybody now today is looking again with new eyes to this topic of food security. So, going on, a second very short idea. I just wanted to give short ideas and just to discuss later, maybe we will have other occasions. Agriculture and food law as innovation engines of European and national law. This is something which is unusual for lawyers. Lawyers traditionally look to agricultural law as something very old-fashioned. The borders, the emphyteusi, I don't know the English word, and so on, the contracts. Nowadays, agricultural regulation, on the pressure of European law, even on the pressure of international law, but also on the pressure of national law, and I will spend a few words, is in fact a sort of laboratory of new ideas. And just one thing. I just heard a colleague a few minutes ago speaking about forestry. And you know that forestry and wood are not part of the common agricultural policy according to the treaty, according to the original text of 1957, but even to the text reformed in the Lisbon Treaty in 2007. And there has been a very famous case, I was speaking just a few minutes ago, in which the Court of Justice said that a regulation adopted on the basis of common agricultural policy could not be adopted with reference to forest. But after that decision, that came not by chance 15 years ago, nowadays, every day, we see regulations adopted in Europe on the basis of common agricultural policy regarding forestry, with no question at all, with no litigation before the Court of Justice. And a second point, someone of the very distinguished and interesting speeches that I had was reasoning on the necessity to look to the entire cycle of life, so to make reference to animals, even animals which are not in our food chain, to look to forestry, to look to environment. Well, we got already a regulation in Europe, Regulation 625 of 2017, which entered in application in 2019, which obliged today all the operators, including farmers, you know, a very small bracket. It is very difficult to be a farmer today because you have so many duties, new duties. You can't go just traditionally. And you must respect, for example, not only animal health, but even animal welfare. And you must respect even the welfare of vegetables. Which vegetables, and how to balance your decision to produce more, but killing some flying being. And this is, we go back to the responsibility of politics. There is, nowadays, we are in phase of not easy challenges, and the legislator is called to decide how to balance those. And finally, only another question. Right to food and access to food. We are getting new scenarios and even a new, how to say, vocabulary, new words. We don't have, you know, in our constitution, which is a very respected constitution, we do not have the expression of right to food. But, I'm coming, the Corte Costituzionale has been able to find the possibility to recognize a right to food, even if we do not have this expression. So, going to the other point, a very interesting one, is this one. This is the reform that we had of the Common Agricultural Policy in the last December, and which is going to be applied starting next January, and which introduce sustainability standard. This is very significant. Look, this is an article 210A. It is something which has been inserted in the old regulation of 2013 on the CMO, on the Common Market Organization. There is a new definition of sustainability. Sustainability nowadays includes not only pollution prevention, not only restoration of biodiversity and ecosystem, not only water and soil, but even reduction of food waste. So going back to the previous slide, and I avoid to go back to that, I have only 4 slides, so this is the third one. And nowadays, reduction of food waste is something which is part of the Common Agricultural Policy and is part of regulation. Of course, this is even a challenge, a very strong challenge for national authorities, because the new model of the European legislation on this area is that the European legislator gives the scenario, the goals to be reached, the general framework. It is up to the national legislator to adopt the strategic plan. But what we know is that starting from next January, the farmer must look even to reduce the food waste. The last one is this one. What is going on the day-to-day decisions? And I was telling you that the rule of law is also a rule of education, culture, and so on. So we have two recent experience that I want to remember you. Because we had this morning even some private foundation of some university agreement. There is a law, a role for legislator, but there is a law even for private legislation, what we call usually soft law or things like that. So everybody, I think, and I have a very distinguished colleague that knows much better than me the Italian law on limiting food waste and to give even food help to people, something that we have seen in a dramatic situation in the last 2 years with the pandemic. But what I wanted also to put to your attention are some new experiences. L'égal cassé. What is l'égal cassé? It is an expression, a French expression, that means something which is not nice. It is a little bit cassé, but it's still good to be eaten. And so there is an organization of sellers who is doing this, which was a pity, which was a defect, transforming it in something which is commercially valid on the market. And this is very significant. The last point is what is the role of the consumer and what is the role of the information of the consumer. You know that we have 2 points, 2 different points in the European regulation regarding information. That is, one is the date of minimum durability of food, and the other one is use by date. I'm always engaged by my wife as consultant when she buys something, if it is a minimum durability or a by that date, because it's not clear. And, you know, my wife, she's psychoanalyst, she has a normal level of culture, but she's not able to understand that. So there is a challenge, and this is the final question that I put, there is a challenge for legislator. Must the legislator go back to his responsibilities and not to leave all the decision to the consumer, which is in most cases not able to distinguish the two, but decide what can be consumed and when. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Albisini, first for young of this table, and second for the vision, because it's important. Also, what you say, it's difficult to be farmer today in a situation of food security. That this term is now we have new eyes on the terms of security, and so also the terms of educational losses and behavior. I think just to stress some key words of your speech. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So now we go to another perspective, because food waste is a global theme at the international agenda, even more in this period with an expectation of increase of inflation. And Professor Andrea Segre is the professor at University of Bologna, but he is also scientific director of the Waste Watcher International Zero Waste campaign, and let me say a pioneer in this theme. And for us, he has deepened this issue and shows us the result of international survey on food waste. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you, Alessandra. Thank you to the FAO and to the CREA for organizing this forum and this opportunity to share with you our research we started some years ago, actually a couple of decades, on investigating the issue of food waste and loss. And you frame already in this forum the approach, circular economy and sustainable development objectives in which we are framed and we fit perfectly, because in the circular economy approach the term waste is sort of abolished, spreco in Italian, and also the objective of Agenda 2030, which is the day after tomorrow, stress point 12.3 actually, that we need to reduce by 50% food waste. And in this respect, we need to have objective, but also a metric, and our observatory is exactly a way to measure food waste, household food waste, and then action, public policies, private policies, and also, of course, regulations. So we developed over the past some 7 years a survey which is devoted to investigate the major part in developed economies of waste, since more or less 60 to 70% of what we waste is in our household, and there is no way to recover surpluses and to benefit charities in looking at food waste at home, like in other fields, in other sectors, like food banks, and we will learn this experience later on. From the methodologically approach, we apply the nudge theory, the Richard Thaler Nobel laureate theory, which is a sort of gentle push to reduce, and actually the right verb would be to prevent food waste, and to frame motivation, opportunity, and also, of course, instrument that private and public body should implement. I'll give you, I need to point to the PC. Okay, I'll show you in a couple of slides some results of our last survey. It's a cross-country report. Each year we sort of try to build a map, a monitoring of different countries. This year we took some 9 countries. You have here Italy, and then a sort of chart of a world. And the idea is to investigate with interviews, with a questionnaire that is sort of developed in a sample of the population. And here we frame behaviors with respect to consumption and to food consumption. Some result is really a sort of short overview in which you see in this chart the citizen expectation with respect to inflation and how they see the future. The impact of inflation on food and on poverty is, as our colleagues later on stressed, is very important, but you see the different perspective with respect to the countries we investigate, from France to Brazil, passing through South Africa, Germany, UK, US, Spain, Italy, and Japan. Different situation, different cultures, different behaviors and food habits. Then we see, for example, another another chart where we ask to our statistical sample of a population the relation between prices and the increase of prices. And could you, well, no, okay, just earlier, because I cannot read since it's too small, although I am my lens, but it's impossible to arrive there. The prices, if the prices will continue to increase, how will be the behaviors in terms of shopping? And here you see the really low rate, for example, of Italy. Then we move to the chart where we estimate in terms of self-perception the amount of grams. Next chart, please go yourself, it's better. And you see this map that compare also the survey of last year in terms of per capita food waste in 1 week. And then if you sum, you get the body weight, but is in grams per week per capita. You see that you pass from more or less 60, 74, more or less. This is precise figure in Italy, more than 3 times in the US. And this chart show you not only in terms of grams, but the relation with respect to purchasing way, to conservation, to how to interpret the expiring date, how this is the questionnaire that we pose to our sample, how is impacting the front of pack labeling like Nutri-Score, Nutri-Inform battery, and other forms. So the idea is basically to understand our behaviors, which is very different, and then try to understand which kind of policies we can apply, and if the case, to copy what is working in other countries. But for example, this is the last, actually there are a couple of charts. For example, with respect to last year, when we asked to our panel of consumers, which is the most negative impact related to food waste, while last year the most important answer was related to the environment, this year is not the case actually, is related to money. We waste food equal wasting money. By the way, we try to estimate, considering, for example, the case of Italy, how much is the cost of this domestic food waste in terms of value, measuring the cost of our purchase is more than 1.2 billion euros. The figure is of 2022. By the way, Alessandro, you quoted the fact that we use energy, water, to produce food. Using the Enea data, we estimate the cost in terms of energy, the energy the energy print, let's say. You should add some more 6.4 billion euros. You couple these two figures, is more or less 1% of our GDP, which is quite an amount of money. So what to do? Next and last one, very shortly, we need to, among the other things, to have a sort of policy measures, and the most popular, actually, this is important, in most of the country is, for example, focusing on food education in schools. So we need to stress the value of food starting from our, so to say, primary school. Why is important? I go to my conclusion, trying to respecting my 10 minutes, because in this way to prevent food waste, recovery is another part of food chain. Our aim is to promote, to adopt healthy and sustainable diets, like the Mediterranean diets, which is actually the topic that our colleague Riccaboni tackled in the previous session. Because the other side of the waste is not only the quantity of food, these 600 grams or 100 kilos, but also the quality of the food you waste on one side and the quality of your nutrition. So you have malnutrition as a keyword, and there is a part of the world, as we know, which is undernourished, and the other part, which is actually more consistent, is there is the overnutrition and the obesity. So, and actually this is what we call metabolic on caloric waste. So we are here, basically, and I conclude, to try to prevent with a gentle push, with rules, public policies, private policy, to all of us as consumers on one side, but the real aim is to promote and adopt sustainable and healthy diets. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for this concept, like gentle push. It's a way to make the step forward, but not to change behavior of the citizen and also the consumers. So it's important. And I have appreciated also the other side of the waste, not the other side of the moon, but the other side of the waste. So all the filière that is, all the chain that is involved in waste. So thank you very much for your speech. And the quantification of food waste implies also the analysis of different sectors, and the recommendations also are different between the sections and according to the subjects involved. This is the topic of the following speech. I thank to Pamela Pagliaccio. She is from ISPRA, and she's part of the National Center for Waste and Circular Economy. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you, the organizers, for the invitation. And I'll start straight away in order to be in the 10 minutes. So, food waste has been gaining attention in the last years, and policies are being put in place in order to contribute to its reduction. An important step taken to fight food waste is the definition of the UN Sustainable Development Goals target. By 2030, halve per capita global food waste at retail and consumer levels, and reduce food losses along production and supply chains, including post-harvest losses. Besides committing to achieve this target, the European Commission also identified food waste as one of the priority areas of the EU Circular Economy Action Plan. The commitment of the European Commission in targeting food waste was reiterated in the new Circular Economy Action Plan and in the recently released Farm to Fork strategy. So the first challenge to overcome in the path towards food waste reduction is food waste quantification. To this and it comes in handy the EU Directive 851 on 2018, amending the Waste Framework Directive that obliges the European Union member states to monitor food waste generation along all the stages of the food supply chain and to take measure in order to limit its generation. It also establishes an annual reporting obligation on food waste generation as of reference year 2020. in order to contribute to the harmonization of food waste quantification in the EU, the European Commission also published a delegated decision number 1597 of 2019, where it lays down a common methodology and minimum quality requirements. The data should be submitted according to the implementing decision number 2000 of 2019, where the European Commission laid down a format for the reporting of data and the submission of the quality report. At the same time, the Commission's Joint Research Center has investigated the potential approaches in order to develop a model based on the data currently available and on the principle mass flow analysis that allows food waste estimation at member states level and the assessment of temporal trends. The most referred study developed across the EU were classified according to the modeling approaches adopted. So under approach A, we will find our studies that use the coefficient applied to production statistic to calculate food waste amounts. Under approach B, we have studies with coefficients applied to waste statistics. And under approach C is the estimation studies with the estimation of food waste at the EU level based on the results of food waste accounting studies conducted for the Fusion program. This model is a very important tool for those countries that have not yet fully implemented the food waste measurement methodologies, since they may use the quantities provided by this study in their own report. What happens for the Italian report is that it was used an integrated approach. The main source of data was the environmental compulsory declaration set up pursuant to Law 70 of 1994, and Italian is shortened in MUD. MUD declarations are submitted every year by subjects obliged by the Article 189 of the Legislative Decree 152 of 2006, and these subjects are waste collection and transport professionals, waste dealers and intermediaries without holding, waste recovery and disposal companies and organizations, consortia and recognized systems, packaging and particular types of waste recovery and recycling professional companies and initial producers of hazardous waste and non-hazardous waste, as referred in Article 184 of the same legislative decree. There are also subjects that are exempt from this declaration, and they are agricultural entrepreneurs with an annual turnover not exceeding 8,000 euros, or companies that collect and transport their own non-hazardous waste, and for non-hazardous waste only in the initial companies and producers that have no more than 10 employees. Data was complemented with a specific surveys for each of the stages of the food supply chain, and these studies were carried out according to the methodology set out in Annex 3 of the Delegated Decision 1597 of 2019. These methodologies are direct measurement, mass balance, waste composition analysis, questionnaires and interviews, coefficients and production statistics, counting, scanning, and diaries. Finally, also the JRC mass flow analysis was used. An in-depth analysis, although an in-depth analysis was carried out for each stage of the food supply chain, the food waste generated at household level is by far the measured contribution. So this was the focus of, this stage was the focus of the attention. It was found that the main reason given by family to justify food waste is that food is moldy, expired, or spoiled. The second reason that the food was cooked, prepared, or served too much, followed by personal preferences. This highlights how poor food management and poor ability to plan grocery shopping are at the root of food waste generated at household level. So although people are willing to reduce food waste, this motivation does not always translate into action. and it is therefore necessary to intervene with useful tools to guide consumers towards a more virtuous behaviors. To this end, means like financial instrument and regulatory approaches have already been implemented successfully in most countries, but there is also another option that permits to alter people's behavior in a predictable way without forbidding any option and without changing significantly the economic incentives. This is called nudge. Nudges are not mandates. So if promoting smaller portions of food counts as nudge, banning family-sized products cannot. There are four different categories of nudge. The first one is information disclosure, which is the availability or unavailability of certain pieces of information that can guide the consumer's behavior. For example, the information about the quantity of food generated in a determined amount of time, or the display of the discount advertisement of products close to expiry in supermarkets. Another important change category is the changes in physical environment. So the changes of some settings changes can induce more virtuous behavior. Like, let's think about the choice of some restaurants to have smaller plates, or the importance of the arrangement of food inside supermarkets. Green defaults come into play when people don't play an active role, but driven by inertia and procrastination follow the default set. In this context, switching the default option to a more sustainable-oriented measure can be a powerful tool. Finally, social norms and feedback are, for example, regular exchanges about personal experiences on the reduction in food waste with friends and neighbors. So as we have seen today, food waste is a complex and multifaceted issue that cannot be attributed to one single variable. It is not the consequence of littering, but the accumulation of habits over time. For this reason, identification of these habits helps to design strategies for food waste prevention. Moreover, in order to achieve the objectives set by the legislation, it's important to have an integrated approach, and emerging evidence suggests that environmental policies are likely to be more effective, cost-effective, when they systematically take behavioral factors into account. Thank you so much for the attention.
Thank you very much, also because it's important to have this integrative approach. I think that what we have seen today, it's the best. Yes, we are in time. I asked to Marco Lucchini to show a concrete case and a very good practice, and just to show us the video that he has prepared for us.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Maurizio Martina and Stefano Vaccari, for the precious insights. I'm Marco Lucchini, doctor in agricultural science, co-founder in Italy in 1989 of the Fondazione Banco Alimentare, and then the Secretary General. The first food bank was founded in 1976 in Phoenix, USA, Arizona. Now I am pleased to introduce a video of our Italian best practice, City Cibo, written in Italian language, SATACABO. It's an example of an implementation of local food policy that from 20 years contributes to reach out the goal 2 and 12. City Cibo intends to contribute to innovate the actual food system into the circular food system, to ensure sufficient health, nutrition, and sustainable food for all the people in kind diversity. Thank you a lot, and please play video.
I would like to thank you very much for the invitation to join this special event organized by CREA. The European Food Banks Federation, FIBA, is a non-profit organization which was established in 1986 and with the main office in Brussels. We represent members in 30 European countries, and we bring together a network of more than 340 food banks which are daily committed to prevent food waste while reducing food insecurity. In 2021, our members redistributed more than 907,000 tons of food to a network of 45,810 charities that provided food assistance to almost 11.8 deprived people in Europe. What I would like to highlight is that this activity is possible thanks to 39,781 co-workers, and 83% of them are volunteers. In particular, today, we would like to share with you a best practice, the City Cibo program, which consists in the recovery and redistribution of surplus food, especially fresh food, from the retail sector and in the urban context. The City Cibo program started in Milan in 2003, and it has grown over time. Indeed, in 2017, the creation of hubs in the city of Milan allowed to involve more retailers but also more charities and to be closer to the community. In 2021, thanks to the City Cibo program, the Italian Banco Alimentare was able to recover and redistribute 16,324 tons of food from retailers, as well as 318 tons of food from the catering sector. The City Cibo program has not only a social, but also an environmental and an economic impact, and it is a concrete and tangible contribution to the achievement of the goals of the Agenda 2030. Thank you, Marco. These are very good news. I want to close this session just for claims before the end of the discussion. Just for the communication, I think it's important, from 4 sentences. From the dark side of the moon to the other side of the waste. Food security and the hard job of the farmer, the gentle push and the paths for the improvement of the situation, as we said before, and the importance of education, behavior, and rules. I think that we have had a good job, so thanks to all the speakers. Thank you, because this round table has given us food to thought and food to action. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay.
Before giving the floor
sorry.
to...
Please.
Sorry, before the closing session and giving the floor to Maurizio Martina, I would like to say a few words. First of all, I have the pleasure and the honor to convey to you a message from our president, Professor Carlo Gaudio, who unfortunately couldn't be here today because he experienced a bad family loss. I transmit and I convey to you his compliments and his greetings for all the job done and for the fruitful day and the works we have done. I take this occasion to thank all the chairpersons and speakers who have intervened today with high-value speeches and contributions, and for their excellent moderation of the roundtables and the timing, because it was not an easy issue to keep time when you talk about such challenging and interesting issues. We heard many interesting talks, and we heard about questions, answers, we heard about innovations and research, and we understood that the debate is still going on and the research must go on. In this regard, I would remind you that within this special event, CREA has launched a call for contributions, for scientific contributions. We gathered many scientific works dealing with innovations, researchers, and results of research. They are all visible on our website, on CREA website. I would like to thank all of you and all the major research institutions and universities who have contributed to the success of this event. I would like to remind that with the CREA, ENEA, and ISPRA, we share a memorandum of understanding with FAO, and we are collaborating very actively to achieve goals and objectives which are common. I would like to thank also Coldiretti, Cluster Agrifood, and Banco Alimentare, who are main actors and stakeholders in the agri-food systems and which contributed to this debate today. Last but not least, I would like to thank all the staff who have been working hard these last months to get this meeting and this special event good organized. I hope that we had success, and I'm sure that the debate was interesting. So now I have the pleasure to pass the floor to Maurizio Martina, FAO Assistant Director General of FAO. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have 15 minutes of this speech, but sto scherzando, non vi ammazzerò. Parlo anche in italiano, così facciamo anche prima. No, devo ringraziarvi per questa occasione. Ringrazio innanzitutto il dottor Vaccari. Chiedo un applauso per il CREA e per tutti gli speaker. E un grande ringraziamento anche a voi studenti, ragazzi, che siete rimasti qui questa mattina con noi a seguire l'intera mattinata, tutti i lavori. Ringrazio anch'io le agenzie e gli istituti che hanno collaborato con il CREA e con noi per questa mattinata. Per noi era importante realizzare questo momento intanto per condividere alcuni scenari, alcune valutazioni di scenario rispetto a 3 grandi questioni che ci accompagneranno e che fanno parte a tutti gli effetti dell'agenda fondamentale non solo della FAO, ma la nostra agenda fondamentale di impegno sulla tenuta, la riorganizzazione, la resilienza, la sostenibilità dei sistemi alimentari, agricoli e alimentari. Penso che l'affresco che abbiamo avuto questa mattina, anche con importanti contributi di merito, che hanno approfondito alcuni punti specifici degli scenari che noi abbiamo voluto in qualche modo presentare con queste 3 sessioni. Questi approfondimenti danno chiaro il segno e il significato del lavoro che noi dobbiamo fare, in particolare, devo dire, nelle politiche pubbliche nazionali, ma anche nel lavoro multilaterale che facciamo, in particolare in questo momento in FAO, danno il segno chiaro di come scienza e innovazione al servizio di una riorganizzazione dei sistemi agricoli e alimentari sono essenziali. La settimana che noi stiamo vivendo in FAO ha un significato molto particolare perché proprio ora, tra pochi minuti, apriremo la sessione dedicata proprio a scienza e innovazione e per noi è centrale lavorare ogni giorno per fare in modo che le politiche pubbliche assumano fino in fondo il presupposto scientifico come presupposto fondamentale per qualsiasi valutazione anche di implementazione di leggi, scelte pubbliche e anche per la valutazione dei comportamenti privati e degli scenari che ciascuno di noi ha di fronte a sé quando deve compiere alcune scelte, che si tratti di un'impresa o di un cittadino. Più noi riusciremo a inverare questa condizione, questo prerequisito, più noi ci muoveremo lungo gli indirizzi che anche qui sono stati giustamente posti alla base di ogni valutazione, cioè comprendere con analisi scientifiche a che punto siamo e dove dobbiamo arrivare. E la scienza e l'innovazione sono strumenti essenziali per cambiare il modello. Noi abbiamo bisogno di cambiare i modelli, di migliorarli, di implementarne le buone pratiche. Credo che l'affresco che abbiamo avuto questa mattina ci dà la dimensione anche della chance che abbiamo. Spesso noi giustamente siamo chiamati a rappresentare le sfide che abbiamo di fronte dal lato delle criticità. Non saremmo noi se non partissimo dal mettere in evidenza la mancanza ancora, no? Quanto ancora manca a determinati obiettivi. Ovviamente il nostro riferimento è l'Agenda 2030 e quindi immancabilmente tutti noi partiamo dal dire rispetto a quegli obiettivi quanto siamo distanti. È un approccio corretto, io penso che sia serio sempre riconoscere quanto manca ancora, anche perché è del tutto evidente che con quello che è accaduto anche nella nostra storia recente, che sta accadendo ancora oggi, noi dobbiamo essere molto realisti e dobbiamo sapere che se vogliamo raggiungere quegli obiettivi dobbiamo raddoppiare gli sforzi nella metà del tempo. Ma penso che quello che, diciamo, ricaviamo anche dalla mattinata di oggi, Stefano, è la chance che abbiamo davanti, le occasioni, le opportunità enormi che abbiamo davanti se scienza e innovazione vengono correttamente applicate, perché lì c'è la chiave, lì c'è la risposta anche a quella mancanza clamorosa che noi vediamo e che misuriamo da qui al 2030 quando guardiamo a quegli obiettivi e ne cogliamo tutta anche la difficoltà nel raggiungimento, no? Lo sforzo che stiamo cercando di fare in FAO in questo momento complicato è di mettere al centro questa consapevolezza anche per provare a costruire una nuova via del multilateralismo che è fatto naturalmente di policy condivise, di tentativi di costruire framework condivisi di policy che accompagnino la comunità internazionale in questo lavoro. Non è facile farlo, in particolare in questo momento, ma anche qui ribaltiamo la prospettiva. È proprio in questo momento che viene fuori tutta la centralità del multilateralismo, perché quando la storia va bene ci si può anche dimenticare. Quando la storia inizia a essere complicata bisogna tornare a dare valore, no? A questi spazi condivisi. Il multilateralismo non è nient'altro che la condivisione di strumenti per fare insieme un lavoro partendo da presupposti diversi e anche da approcci differenti. Noi stiamo cercando di fare questo e lo facciamo in particolare su un nodo cruciale, quello della tenuta e della prospettiva dei sistemi agricoli e alimentari. Anche qui con la consapevolezza che prima della pandemia e prima della guerra discutere, ma voi lo sapete meglio di me, discutere del futuro dei sistemi agricoli e alimentari sembrava quasi solo una discussione per addetti ai lavori. Quante volte noi abbiamo sbattuto contro un muro anche un po' di indifferenza, perché quando discutevamo di questo discutevamo sostanzialmente di questioni che o venivano relegate a discussioni per addetti ai lavori o addirittura, come è accaduto un po' di tempo fa, venivano giudicate un po' discussioni novecentesche. Non c'è più un tema di un problema di accesso al cibo. Tutto sommato oggi abbiamo tutto tutti, siamo in un mondo diverso rispetto al Novecento. Quante volte abbiamo sentito anche, come dire, tra la fine degli anni 90 e l'inizio degli anni 2000, sostanzialmente queste discussioni erano giudicate passate. Oggi torna tutta la centralità di questo tema, perché quando poi decliniamo la questione della sostenibilità ambientale non possiamo non affondare il colpo su come noi produciamo e gestiamo quello che ci fa vivere, cioè il cibo, ma più in generale la pandemia ce lo ha detto, la guerra ce lo sta dicendo. Quindi a me interessa, in queste brevissime conclusioni, ringraziarvi davvero di cuore per questa mattinata, ringraziare il CREA, tutte le realtà che sono intervenuti, tutti i nostri relatori, e ancora una volta confermare che l'Italia in questo ha un ruolo particolare. Non perché dobbiamo celebrarci, autocelebrarci, sempre raccontando le magnifiche esperienze che noi produciamo anche da questo punto di vista, ma perché per davvero c'è una sensibilità della ricerca italiana, dell'Accademia italiana, dei sistemi agricoli e alimentari italiani, dell'esperienza agroalimentare italiana, che può fare la differenza anche dentro questo framework più grande, che è la cooperazione internazionale sui sistemi agricoli e alimentari e la ricerca e l'innovazione applicata nei sistemi agricoli e alimentari al servizio di quegli obiettivi. C'è una specificità nostra per come facciamo noi le cose, anche per le sensibilità che manifestiamo nel maneggiare alcuni temi. La discussione che abbiamo appena sentito, ad esempio, su food waste non è, come dire, comune, secondo me, altrove. Capita spesso anche a noi di lavorare su questo, abbiamo, non sto a tediarvi, ma innumerevoli strumenti su questo fronte, ma cogli la differenza di sensibilità, così come la cogli sul tema, ovviamente, delle diete sane e nutrienti, così come la cogli sul nodo della biodiversità. Cioè c'è un tratto italiano che acquista anche un significato, fatemi dire, e chiudo, diplomatico, non solo scientifico, la scienza che si mette al servizio di qualcosa di più grande, che è anche la diplomazia. E in questo, secondo me, dobbiamo un po' recuperare un ruolo che abbiamo, anche perché ospitiamo agenzie internazionali come la FAO, e non è un caso che sia a Roma. Anche qui bisognerebbe aprire un capitolo, diamo per scontate cose che scontate non sono. Non è un caso che sia qui. Ecco, a me interessava, grazie veramente di cuore per la vostra partecipazione, dare il segnale che l'Italia non segue questa discussione, in parte un po' mira anche a guidarla, proprio mettendo al servizio il bagaglio di competenze che ha. L'altra grande parola d'ordine di questa mattinata è capitale umano. Tutto quello che abbiamo discusso fino a qui non esiste se non c'è un investimento sulle persone, sul capitale umano, sulla formazione, sulla ricerca, e in questo io penso che abbiamo dato dimostrazione anche questa mattina, anche per chi avrà avuto l'interesse di seguirlo in collegamento, della grande opportunità che è questo Paese quando fa questo lavoro. Grazie di cuore a tutti e adesso buon appetito.